Chapter 1047. Everyone in the room was silent. Dead? The one who spoke was Empress Xiande. She said, "Why would Consort Jing die?" The old Grand Doctor bowed and said, "Ever since Consort Jing was pregnant, she had to take nourishment every day. This was already too much for the child and her body was weak and vigorous. Today the fall was too heavy and the child could not be kept. Consort Jing was also overly frightened and lost too much blood, so Shen Miao did not know what she was feeling in her heart. Lu Jing was naturally stupid, but to die carrying the dragon seed that she was pregnant with, the future crown prince, was perhaps the biggest blow to her. This was perhaps the fatal reason for her excessive fear. Emperor Yong Li's face did not show any joy or anger. He was not happy because of this and did not feel pain. It was Empress Xiande who said in a deep voice, "Why would Consort Jing suddenly fall out of nowhere? Where did the palace maids beside her go?" The palace maids of Jinhua Palace quickly knelt down and said, "Previously when Consort and young lady of the Yi family were talking in the palace, she suddenly mentioned going to the imperial gardens for a walk. Consort did not like to have these servants by her side and these servants did not dare to disobey Consort's orders. It was just that young lady of the Lu family did not return and Consort also did not return. When Consort saw Consort Jing again, it was Qin Wang Fei who sent her back. This Consort Jing's palace maid was as eloquent as Consort Jing and did not leave any traces of her guilt. But since something had happened to Consort Jing, the maids by her side could not escape the blame. Empress Xiande did not suspect Shen Miao at all and immediately asked, "Where is young lady of the Yi family? Come, find young lady of the Yi family." As it concerned the imperial sons and grandsons, it was a big matter and moreover it happened in the inner palace. Empress Xiande, as the ruler of the 6 palaces, naturally had to investigate thoroughly. Emperor Yongle did not speak and let Empress Xiande give the orders. From the time the matter happened till now, he did not reveal much emotions, making one unable to guess what he was thinking. Shen Miao was thinking about where Xie Jingxing went at such a crucial time and at the same time she was thinking about the possibility of things happening. If it was said that Yi Mei killed Lu Jing, there was no reason for this at all. Even if Yi Mei wanted to enter the palace and come here to pry information from Lu Jing's mouth, there was no need to kill her. Moreover, Yi Mei was not someone who would do it herself. Although she was ruthless, most of the time, she would instruct others to do it. In the end, she would get what she wanted without a speck of dust. Even if Yi Mei really wanted to kill Lu Jing, there was no need to use such a stupid method. Everyone knew that she went out with Jing Fei. If something happened to Jing Fei, wouldn't she be the first to be suspected? This made Shen Miao puzzled. The people of Jinhua Palace were all thinking about their own matters. Not long after, they heard the panicked voice of a woman behind them, "Jing Fei nyang 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 nyang." Shen Miao turned back to look and saw Yi Mei being brought in by a few guards. Her expression was somewhat flustered and there was even more helplessness and disbelief. She took 2 steps forward and was stopped by Empress Xiande's guards. Empress Xiande looked at her and said coldly, "Where did Miss Yi go? Why did you only come now? Before Jing Fei died, you went out with her to the imperial garden. Why did you disappear when something happened to Jing Fei?" These words were all aggressive and had the attitude of a punitive expedition. Empress Xiande usually looked calm and gentle, but at this moment, she had the demeanor of an empress. Her words made Yi Mei shrink back. Shen Miao looked at her coldly. Yi Mei lowered her head in disbelief and seemed to be recalling. She said, "This official's daughter was previously talking with Jing Fei Nyang in Jinhua Palace. Jing Fei Nyang said that the weather outside was cool and wanted to get some wind. Jing Fei Nyang's palace maids also wanted to go, but Jing Fei Nyang felt that it would be inconvenient if there were too many people. Moreover, it was only a walk in the imperial garden and there would not be any danger. With this official's daughter at the side, there was no need to use other people. Chapter 1048. Hearing this, everyone in the room had different expressions. Lu Jing originally had a proud personality, and because she was pregnant, it became even worse. Perhaps it was because Lu Jing saw Yi Mei's beauty and felt uncomfortable in her heart, or maybe it was because of some other reason, but in the end, she let Yi Mei go with them. Lu Jing wanted to order Yi Mei around like a maid, so she didn't call her palace maids, in order to make things difficult for Yi Mei. This really was Jing Fei's personality. Afterwards, this subject and Jing Fei Nyang were walking in the garden. Jing Fei Nyang suddenly said it was a bit cold and wanted this subject to find a silk cloak for her. That cloak wasn't in Jinghua Palace, but in a scholar's little building. This official's daughter wasn't familiar with the roads in the palace and wasted a lot of time looking for the small building. When this official's daughter got the cloak, the Empress guards came and said that something had happened to Jing Fei. Yi Mei knelt down and said, when this subject left, Jing Fei Nyang was still fine. This subject really doesn't know what happened. She suddenly thought of something and said, if Nyang doesn't believe, you can send someone to find the talented person in the small building. She can testify for this subject. This subject went to find her to get the cloak at the time. This subject went to get the cloak, how could it have harmed Jing Fei Nyang? Empress Yen De frowned. Everyone was very clear of Jing Fei's personality. Outside, ordering Yi Mei to be a servant girl to get a cloak from far away, it really was in line with Jing Fei's usual methods. Empress Xianda said, Tao Gu Gu, take people to that noble small building and ask clearly. If they are lying, they will be heavily punished. Yi Mei hurriedly said, that noble surname is Chao. Tao Gu Gu received the order and left. The room instantly sank into a stalemate. Yi Mei knelt on the ground, her frail body trembling, her face full of grievance. When she smiled, she was as charming as a kitten, able to captivate a person's soul. Right now, she was silently shedding tears, as if she was frightened, but also delicate and pitiful. Her eyes were misty, and her shoulders trembled. She was like a kitten, making people feel pity for her and want to hold her in their arms. Her kneeling feet happened to be in a very delicate position. When Emperor Yonglu lowered his head, he could see her beautiful side profile on her fragile figure. Empress Xianda saw all of this and curled up her lips with a faint smile. Shen Miao gasped in amazement and finally knew why she lost to Yi Mei in her previous lifetime. Even in this kind of urgent situation, Yi Mei still used her beauty to charm people's hearts without holding back. Shen Miao liked Fu Xiu Yi, so she silently paid and clumsily used her own precious things to exchange for him. As for Yi Mei, she liked a person. It should be said that Yi Mei wanted a person, which was to show off her most beautiful side, to make people pay for her, to exchange their most precious things for her. But Shen Miao glanced at Emperor Yonglu. Yi Mei's plan would most likely fail as Emperor Yonglu did not even look at Yi Mei. The two brothers of the Xia family were like two iron plates. Beauty alone was probably not enough. Moreover, Emperor Yonglu looked like he did not care about a woman's beauty as compared to Xia Jingxing. But before Auntie Tao could arrive, the Lu family came. Both Lu Furen and Master Lu came. The child in Consort Jing's stomach was gone and Consort Jing was also gone. Other than Consort Jing herself, who had already passed away, the ones who were the most angry about this matter were the Lu family. Lu Jingchen aggressively brought Lu Furen to Jinhua Palace. The palace servants did not stop them and Emperor Yonglu was also too lazy to stop them. When Lu Furen came in, she sat on the ground and cried, lamenting her poor daughter. Shen Miao looked at Lu Furen's actions like she was looking at a jumping clown. If she really loved her daughter, why would the first thing she did after entering the palace was not to see Lu Jing's corpse and see her daughter for the last time, but cry miserably in front of the emperor and empress? One fear that the love for her daughter was fake and the true love for the dragon seed in Lu Jing's stomach was the dragon seed. Chapter 1049. Lu Jingchun was born with a fiendish appearance. Now that he had a stern face and an aggressive appearance, he really looked like an evil spirit from hell. It made people vaguely feel that if it wasn't for the fact that the situation was not right, he would even commit regicide. He said, "Your Majesty, Jinger and the dragon seed in her abdomen were poisoned, and this is not a small matter." This official had raised Jinger to this age in hope that Your Majesty can be considerate of this official's love for his daughter and give this official an explanation. Shen Miao almost wanted to laugh. Looking at Lu Jingchun's words, it seemed that he was looking for Emperor Yonglu to denounce him. Such an arrogant attitude, was it really because he was Emperor Xiao Wu's confidant that he had such guts? One fear that he did not place Emperor Yonglu in his eyes from the start and had a disloyal official's heart. His words and actions would also show disrespect to the emperor. Emperor Yonglu lightly said, "The imperial son and imperial grandson are stirring up trouble." General Lu reminded Jin that it is unnecessary. Lu Jingchun choked. In the past Emperor Yonglu would always treat him politely, but now he did not give any face at all. He also knew that the imperial family had started to secretly deal with the Lu family. Originally he thought that with consort Jing's pregnancy, the Lu family would have more chips, but who knew that the chicken was lost and the eggs were broken, so how could he not be flustered and exasperated? But he could no longer openly go against Emperor Yonglu like in the past. That ignorant child had already become the emperor and had more means than he had imagined. The Lu family's power had declined. There was such a kind of person in the world who bullied the weak and feared the strong. He was unreasonable, but you were even more unreasonable than him, thus he would be terrified. Lu Jing was like this and Lu Jingchun was also like this. Lu Furen just finished crying and looked at Shen Miao. "When something happened to Jinger, you were at the scene. Did you see the murderer?" Shen Miao shook her head. Lu Jingchun sternly said, "At that time when you were there, Jinger could still speak." It was obvious that the person did not take action for long, so how could one not see it? Before Shen Miao could speak, Emperor Yonglu spoke first. "Qin Wangfei was only passing by and it is not a crime to not see the murderer." General Lu did not go and investigate the murderer and blamed the person who should not be blamed. Concern causes confusion. Shen Miao did not expect that Emperor Yonglu would speak for her, as Emperor Yonglu had always looked down on her. Lu Jingchun sneered, "Your Majesty, in this world, there are many cases of thieves crying thief." Empress Yenda frowned. "Qin Wangfei would not do such a thing. Ben Gong is willing to use the identity of the Empress as a guarantee." Emperor Yonglu and Empress Yenda spoke for Shen Miao, so Lu Jingchun could not say anything. He smiled, but his smile was very fierce. Shen Miao said, "Even though I saw that something happened to Consort Jing, but the young lady of the Yi family had been accompanying Consort Jing before it happened." General Lu might as well ask her. Who did not know how to divert trouble to another? Originally this matter was stirred up by Yi Mei and Shen Miao was not willing to take the blame for Yi Mei. Lu Jingchun looked at Yi Mei, who was kneeling on the ground. His eyes flashed, but he did not say anything. Shen Miao understood that this Lu Jingchun looked like a martial artist, but he had his own shrewdness. Now that the Lu family was being besieged by the imperial family, the situation was getting more and more tense by the day. Naturally, they wanted to find an ally. The Yi family couldn't be any better. But Yi Maokai was more shrewd than him and the Yi family had yet to decide which side to stand on. Lu Jingchun naturally hoped that the Yi family would stand on his side. Anyway, his daughter and grandson were already dead and the future matters were more important. In comparison, he was even more unwilling to offend potential allies for the sake of dead people. For a family in the center of power, they could even sacrifice their children in vain. A son would still consider it, and as for a daughter, there was almost no need to care as they were people of other families. As Shen Miao was thinking like this in her heart, she saw a person dressed as a guard walking over and walking to the front of Emperor Yonglu. "Your Majesty," someone said that they saw the murderer that pushed Consort Jing down the stairs. Chapter 1050. When the words were said, everyone was shocked. Emperor Yonglu and Empress Xiande had not even spoken when Lu Jingchen had already opened his mouth. "Who is it? Did that person say who the murderer is?" Lu Furen however quickly clasped her hands together and said bitterly, "The heavens have a spirit and can finally find the person who killed my Jinger. Wait till I find that person and make him pay with blood." The Lu family's attitude was just too exaggerated. Emperor Yonglu coldly said, "Bring him in." Shen Miao subconsciously looked at Yi Mei on the ground. Yi Mei was kneeling on the ground with her back slightly bent, looking like she was wronged and helpless. Shen Miao however noticed her hands. The long sleeves covered her palms but revealed her fingertips. The slender fingers were really as beautiful as tender onions, but the thumb and index finger of her left hand formed a circle and gently rubbed together. Shen Miao had dealt with Mei Furen for a lifetime and naturally knew the meaning of her every action. Shen Miao was very clear about this action. When Yi Mei was scheming against someone and when her goal was about to be achieved, she would involuntarily do this action. Shen Miao's heart jumped. That witness who came to testify was a part of Yi Mei's scheme. She was about to achieve her goal. Or perhaps Lu Jing's death was really related to Yi Mei. Why? Following that, there was a sound of twigs coming from outside the room. This sound was like the sound of wheels rolling on the ground. Shen Miao slightly narrowed her eyes and looked towards the door. A maidservant pushed a person into the room. That person was sitting on a chair with wheels and there was a blanket covering his knees with both hands folded neatly on his knees. He seemed to be unable to walk and that chair with wheels could be pushed forward effortlessly by the maid. When one got closer, one could see clearly that that person was around 11 or 12 years old. His appearance was delicate and was a youth wearing an ivory-colored robe. He seemed to be somewhat shy but there was a trace of panic in his eyes. Shen Miao stood there as if she had turned into a stone statue. Her eyes were instantly filled with hot tears that almost fell down. Fu Ming. Time suddenly turned around. She could almost see through the beautiful young man on the wheelchair to the little boy wearing a bright yellow robe holding a large bouquet of red plum blossoms in his hands, smiling at her in a flattering and caring manner. He said, "Muhu, Urchin saw that the plum blossoms in the courtyard have bloomed, so I climbed the tree and cut a large bouquet. Muhu looks at the red plum blossoms in the room every day and feels comfortable. Your illness will soon recover." He said, "Although Jijia is no longer here, your son will always accompany Muhu." He said, "Don't worry, mother. Your son will learn from the grand tutor. When your son becomes stronger, no one will dare to bully mother." Now, that beautiful and exquisite youth was pushed in front of Yi Mei and called out softly, "Big sister." Shen Miao's eyes widened. He was the young master of the Yi family, Yi Hongguang, who was born of a concubine and was registered under Madame Ye's name. People from the Yi clan. The manservant pushed Yi Hongguang forward. Yi Hongguang faced Emperor Yonglu and was slightly nervous. It was as though he didn't know where to put his hands and feet when facing the ruler of Great Liang. He said, "Hongguang greets your majesty. Please forgive Hongguang's legs for not being able to properly greet." Emperor Yonglu lightly waved his hands. Yi Hongguang seemed to be facing so many people for the first time and was somewhat afraid. He involuntarily turned the mechanism on the chair and moved closer to Yi Mei. When Shen Miao saw this, her gaze suddenly paused. How could Fu Ming and Yi Mei have such an intimate posture? She suddenly had an impulse to pull Fu Ming away from Yimei's side. But she could not. She and Fu Ming were strangers. Chapter 1051. It seemed that her gaze was too persistent that even Yi Hongguang could sense it. Yi Hongguang swept a glance over with some curiosity in his eyes. Seeing Shen Miao staring at him without blinking, he lowered his head in shock and rubbed the edge of the blanket on his knees uneasily. Young Master Yi. Lu Jingquan's brows wrinkled as he asked, "You saw the murderer who killed Jing'er?" Yi Hongguang was startled and jumped in shock when he saw Lu Jingquan's fiendish look and looked towards Yimei for help. Every time he looked at Yimei with a dependent gaze, Shen Miao's heart felt as if a knife was being twisted in her heart. Empress Yenda said in a pleasant manner, "Hongguang, you said that you saw the person who pushed down Consort Jing. Is it true?" Empress Yenda seemed to have a good impression of Yi Hongguang and spoke much more gently. Yi Hongguang looked at Empress Yenda and it seemed that he was not that afraid as he nodded his head. "Then who is that person?" Empress Yenda asked. Yi Hongguang lowered his head as if he was somewhat timid. After hesitating for a long time, he then raised his head again. The direction he raised his head was towards Shen Miao and his eyes also landed on Shen Miao. Then Yi Hongguang slowly reached out his hand and pointed at Shen Miao before saying softly, "It is her." Shen Miao was like being struck by lightning. Empress Yenda's expression changed and asked in a stern voice, "Hongguang, do you know that if one lies, it is a crime of deceiving the monarch and one will lose their head?" Emperor Yonglu also said coldly, "Are you sure that you saw it clearly?" The emperor and empress' attitude made it clear that they did not believe Yi Hongguang's words. Yi Hongguang looked to be very timid, but under the pressure of the emperor and empress, he became more determined. He looked at Shen Miao and said with certainty, "It is this Furen." Shen Miao staggered a step and almost could not believe her own ears. This Furen, Fu Ming actually called her this Furen. Her son was now by her enemy's side and was helping her enemy to testify against her. How ridiculous! When her actions landed in the eyes of others, it seemed that she had a guilty conscience. Lu Jingquan's eyes narrowed and without a second word, he reached out to Shen Miao's body and actually wanted to drag Shen Miao over. Seeing this, Star Anise and Fennel immediately stood in front of Shen Miao to protect her. No one expected that Lu Jingquan would suddenly make a move. The Imperial Guards hurriedly protected Empress Xianda and Emperor Yonglu. Emperor Yonglu shouted, "Lu Jingquan, you are making a move in the Jinghua Palace. Are you trying to rebel?" As Lu Jingquan fought with the Star Anise, he loudly said, "Your Majesty, my Lu family has lost Jing-er. Now that the murderer is in front of us, let this old man take revenge for the murder of my daughter. Then, you'll punish me for my crimes. Even if I bring it out to the world, I'm afraid the common people will think that I did the right thing." This Lu Jingquan was truly a troublemaker. Emperor Yonglu's face turned ashen. Star Anise and Fennel had to consider their identities and Shen Miao, but Lu Jingquan's every move was ruthless and deadly. The two girls were about to lose. Shen Miao stared blankly at Yi Hongguang who was beside Yimei. Yi Hongguang seemed to be avoiding her gaze and was unwilling to look at Shen Miao. Instead, he whispered something to Yimei. Just at this moment, Lu Jingquan's legs suddenly went soft and he knelt on the ground. Everyone did not see clearly what happened and only heard a "pada" sound as 2 gold ingots fell to the ground. Lu Jingquan held his knees as he fell to the ground. A calm voice sounded from outside. "When this prince is not here, any Tom, Dick, or Harry can bully this prince's woman." He was even more arrogant and rampant than Lu Jingquan. In the calm voice, everyone could hear the anger. One saw Xie Jingxing appearing at the door with a gold ingot in his hand. Obviously, he had used this to injure Lu Jingquan's knees. He strode over to Shen Miao's side, and when he saw Shen Miao's pale expression, he thought that Shen Miao was frightened and became even angrier. He turned to look at Lu Jingchen, who was being helped up by his subordinates, and indifferently said, "Master Lu, do you have any dissatisfaction with this prince?" His appearance was handsome and his tone was calm, but it sent a chill down one's spine. Lu Jingchen was not to be outdone. Even though he was angry that Xie Jingxing made a fool of him, he was still unforgiving. He said, "Jing He was killed by someone. Young Master Yi saw it with his own eyes, and it was Shen Miao who did it. For this old man to take revenge for his daughter, it is only right and proper." Young Master Yi. Xie Jingxing's gaze swept around the room and stopped on Yi Hongguang, who was in a wheelchair. He slowly walked over to Yi Hongguang and looked down at him from above. Xie Jingxing was a person that made people feel pressured. When Yi Hongguang was stared at by him, he felt somewhat uncomfortable and avoided his gaze. Xie Jingxing looked at him with a smile that was not a smile. "Which eye of yours saw her kill someone?" Not waiting for Yi Hongguang to reply, Xie Jingxing lightly said, "Which eye of yours saw it? I will dig out that eye of yours." Chapter 1052. Whichever eye you saw it with, I will dig out that eye of yours. A brazen threat, and not caring that Lu Jingchen and Emperor Yongle were present, he dared to say such disgraceful words. Lu Jingchen was so angry that he almost raised his head. Xie Jingxing's meaning was clearly for Yi Hongguang to change his words in front of him. How could there be such a scoundrel in the world? "Now, tell me again." Xie Jingxing played with the gold ingot in his hand and carelessly said, "What did you see?" Yi Hongguang had never seen such a situation before and had never thought that there would be someone who dared to be so unreasonable in front of the emperor. In his nervousness, he looked at Yi Mei as if asking for help. This was because among the people present, Yi Mei was the one who had the closest relationship with him. But what made Yi Hongguang disappointed was that Yi Mei did not help him and lowered her head to avoid Yi Hongguang's gaze. Like this, Yi Hongguang was even more helpless. Emperor Yongle and Empress Xiande did not speak. Originally, Lu Jingchuan's arrogance was infuriating, but Xie Jingxing was not someone who would suffer losses. When the two of them met, no matter how one looked at it, it was Lu Jingchen who was at a disadvantage, so the two of them would not speak. Even though Lu Jingchen was angry with Xie Jingxing, he did not dare to act rashly. Emperor Yongle still had to consider his status as the emperor, and it was not the time to shed all pretense of cordiality. But Xie Jingxing was different. When Xie Jingxing first returned to Longyi, there were also court officials who pointed out their suspicions of Xie Jingxing in the throne room. At that time, they all smiled and agreed. Not long after, did those court officials have a good ending. Xie Jingxing was a vicious person and would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. Unless there was no other choice, one must not shed all pretense of cordiality with him. Yi Hongguang was unwilling to speak, and Shen Miao calmed down at this time. She walked forward and happened to be shoulder to shoulder with Xie Jingxing. Looking at the youth on the wheelchair, she said, "You really saw me push Jing Fei down?" Yi Hongguang raised his head to look at her. Shen Miao was after all a female, and Yi Hongguang was not that afraid of her. Even though his expression was still somewhat unnatural, his courage was much bigger. He hesitated for a bit before firmly nodding his head. She said, "Good, then you tell me, where were you at that time?" Yi Hongguang was stunned. "Are you above or below the steps?" Shen Miao patiently guided. She softened her tone like a gentle older sister, but Yi Hongguang suddenly shrunk his neck because of her question. Yi Mei, who was kneeling motionlessly on the ground with her head lowered, also trembled slightly. Shen Miao did not give him a chance to think as she pressed on and asked, "Do you remember? Above or below?" "Below, below," Yi Hongguang said. Shen Miao laughed softly. Lu Jingchen and Madame Lu angrily looked at her, seemingly annoyed that she could still smile in this kind of situation. However, Empress Yenda's eyes relaxed slightly. Emperor Yongle stared at Shen Miao while Xie Jingxing crossed his arms and looked at Yi Hongguang with a smile that was not a smile. That is really strange. Shen Miao said, that flight of steps is very long and steep, and it is because of this that Jing Fei fell so heavily. Such a long and steep flight of stairs, how could you see me standing at the top? One feared that one would not even be able to see Jing Fei's shadow. Yi Hongguang was stunned in a moment. He was not old and did not leave the residence all year round. Seeing Emperor Yongle today, he was already very nervous, but now that Shen Miao said that, he panicked. Yi Mei slowly clenched his fists. Shen Miao asked, "Young Master Yi, think again. Could it be that you have misremembered? Was it above or below?" Yi Hongguang quickly said, "Above. I have misremembered. It is above." He repeated it again with certainty. Chapter 1053. Yi Mei, who was on the floor, suddenly shrugged her shoulders as if she was somewhat discouraged. Shen Miao was still smiling, but her eyes turned sharp as she said, "Oh. Young Master Ye's legs are inconvenient and it is such a long flight of steps. One would think that one would not be able to go up by oneself. There should be someone who would carry you up or carry your wheelchair up. You should also have your own servant by your side. Why is it that only you saw me pushing people and not your servant?" The room quietened down in a moment. Large drops of sweat appeared on Yi Hongguang's forehead. His face flushed red and he could not speak for a moment, as if his lie had been exposed. Emperor Yongle coldly said, "Do you know what is the crime of deceiving the emperor?" The crime of deceiving the emperor was one's head. It was also that Yi Hongguang could not take fright. One had to know that Shen Miao's words, if one was clever, one could find other excuses. For example, when the servant went to take things and temporarily left him alone, most people would not obediently plead guilty and would fight for what was right. But Yi Hongguang easily admitted his lie. It was obvious that he did not often do such things and was not familiar with it. If it was a veteran like Yi Mei, it would be much easier for the steamy eyes to lie. Xie Jingxing's lips curled up. Imperial older brother, an official's relative, knowingly committed a crime. Just throw them to the Ministry of Justice, or maybe parade them in the streets. He lazily said, otherwise anyone can bully the people of Prince Rui's residence. Then how can I live? Xie Jingxing was clearly using his position to avenge a private grudge. But he was not a good person and did not have any good feelings towards the Yi family, thus there was no hesitation when he spoke of these things. It only made Yi Mei's face pale and Lu Jingchuan's expression very ugly. Killing the chicken to warn the monkey. Who was the chicken and who was the monkey? It was clear at a glance. Empress Yenda said, "Yi Hongguang, you dare to lie in the palace and vainly attempt to slander Qin Wangfei." Her harsh words and stern expression made Yi Hongguang almost cry out in fright. But Yi Mei ignored him and he did not have any familiar people in the palace, so he was very helpless. The young master of the Yi family is young and it is understandable for him to see wrongly. Thinking about it, when he saw that something had happened to Jing Fei, he was anxious, and because he caught the culprit, it is possible that he misunderstood something. Shen Miao helped Yi Hongguang exonerate. Everyone was surprised by her actions. Yi Hongguang had slandered Shen Miao, and even though Shen Miao was not a vicious person, she would not show mercy to those who harmed her. Looking at the second and third household of the Shen family and even the imperial family of Ming Qi, when had she ever been soft? Hence, Yi Hongguang's leniency was rather puzzling. Xie Jingxing also frowned. Shen Miao slightly bent over and her line of sight was at the same level as Yi Hongguang. She said warmly, "Or perhaps you heard something from others so you misunderstood me. Did anyone teach you to say that?" Yi Hongguang's body suddenly shook. Shen Miao was close to him and could clearly see the flash of panic in Yi Hongguang's eyes. Yi Hongguang really wasn't good at lying. Although he didn't show it, almost everyone could see that he was lying. Xie Jingxing's eyes sharpened, but Yi Hongguang raised his head again and looked at Shen Miao firmly. No one taught me. There was no one to teach him, but he no longer insisted that Shen Miao was the murderer. Shen Miao said, I know. Empress Xiande frowned and thought about it before saying, the matter of Jing Fei will be handed over to the Ministry of Justice for investigation. Yi Hongguang, since you have lied, then it cannot be treated as true. The most urgent matter is to investigate the palace to see if there is such an assassin and also to collect the corpse of Jing Fei. Finally she looked at the Lu couple and said, what else does General Lu have to say? At the end, her tone was filled with ridicule. Chapter 1054. Lu Jingchen looked at Empress Xiande and held a breath in his heart. In the beginning, when Emperor Yongle favored Jing Fei, they had hoped that Jing Fei would replace Empress Xiande's position. But Empress Xiande's usual actions were not something that could be used against her. After so many years, they had not succeeded. Lu Jing had given pillow talk to Emperor Yongle countless times, but in the end, Emperor Yongle did not have the intention to abolish the Empress. It was not easy for Lu Jing to conceive the dragon seed, and it was at such a delicate time. They thought that they could turn the tables, but who knew that the weather was unpredictable and all their efforts were for naught. In reality, Lu Jingchen himself knew that Lu Jing was already dead and it was too late to say anything now. But he was unwilling, and hoped that Emperor Yongle could compensate him with something. Today, he had pestered Emperor Yongle endlessly, and although he was angry, it wasn't because of his daughter's tragic death, but because he felt pity for his grandson. Xie Jingxing's sudden appearance made Lu Jingchen put away his arrogance. In terms of viciousness, this Prince Rui was even more vicious. Knowing that there was no gain today, Lu Jingchen unwillingly said, this subject obeys the emperor. At the side, a murderous intent flashed through Emperor Yongli's eyes. The Lu couple left. From entering the palace to leaving the palace, they did not even look at the dead Jing Fei once, as though she was not their own daughter. After they left, Emperor Yongle said, you all should also return. Empress Xiande looked strangely at Emperor Yongle. This Yi Mei and Yi Hongguang, one was with Jing Fei at that time. Even though there were talented people in the small building as witnesses, it could not wash away all the suspicions. The other one directly slandered Shen Miao. Even if these two people were not the murderers, they would definitely not be spared. But Emperor Yongle did not seem to have any intentions of pursuing it. Empress Xiande was puzzled but saw Emperor Yongli's body move imperceptibly. Her heart jumped, but she did not care about anything else and immediately said, not bad, go back now. Xie Jingxing's brows furrowed, but he did not say anything. He only looked coldly at Yi Mei, who was thanking him, and the manservant who was pushing Yi Hongguang. He slowly stood up and hurriedly left. He said, since there's nothing else, I will take my leave first. Xie Jingxing never hid his emotions in front of Emperor Yongle. Obviously, he was not happy with Emperor Yongli's punishment. Shen Miao and Xie Jingxing left Jinhua Palace together, and as they were walking out of the palace, they coincidentally met Yi Mei and her brother. Shen Miao was slightly startled. Yi Hongguang suddenly ordered the manservant who was pushing him to stop. He turned around and looked at Shen Miao as if he had something to say. Xie Jingxing's face immediately became ugly. He had classified all the Yi family's people as dangerous people. If dangerous people were to get close to Shen Miao, what if something happened? Thus, he followed closely behind, the dagger in his sleeve unsheathed without batting an eyelid. Shen Miao watched as the youth stopped in front of her. Not far away, Yi Mei was looking over with a nervous expression. It seemed that she wanted to stop Yi Hongguang's actions, but with Tai Yi and Song Yang blocking her, she didn't dare move. Yi Hongguang raised his head and looked at her with a red face. He seemed to be very ashamed as he said, "Sorry." He seemed to want to say something but hesitated for a moment. In the end, he did not say anything. He looked at Shen Miao again before pushing the wheelchair and left. Xie Jingxing's eyebrows raised as if he did not understand what Yi Hongguang meant. Shen Miao looked at his back and her expression became somewhat complicated. On the carriage back, Xie Jingxing saw that Shen Miao did not speak at all and said, "Let the MOU army capture that brat to the tower prison and lock him up for a day or two. After he is honest, he will then explain who the person behind him is." Chapter 1055. He was talking about Yi Hongguang. Today, with Yi Hongguang's performance in Jinhua Palace, even a fool would not believe that there was no one who instructed him to slander Shen Miao. Shen Miao rolled her eyes at Xie Jingxing. What is there to explain? Other than Yi Mei, who else could it be? Yi Mei's small actions could be hidden from others but not from her. Then why are you still unhappy? Xie Jingxing pinched her face, seeing that brat today. It was very strange. Is there anything that I do not know? He narrowed his eyes. Shen Miao pushed his hand away. Do you still remember that I told you about the dream that I had? In the dream, I gave birth to a son and a daughter. Xie Jingxing's joking expression paused as he looked at her. When I first saw Yi Hongguang, I felt that he was too similar to the child in the dream, my child. I thought that he was the child in the dream. But he stood on Yi Mei's side and helped Yi Mei to slander me. To tell the truth, I was very sad. Shen Miao said, but afterwards I took a careful look and discovered that they were not the same. They only looked alike. Speaking of which, now thinking about it, they only looked like each other and there were still many differences. After a short period of surprise and sadness, Shen Miao kept paying attention to that beautiful youth. At first glance, he and Fu Ming did not look any different, but their temperaments were completely different. Because Fu Ming was not favored by Fu Xiuyi and because of her tit-for-tat relationship with Mei Furen, he matured early since young. Fu Ming was generous, magnanimous, upright and kind. Fu Ming had the qualities that an outstanding heir to the throne should have. But this child in front of her was just an ordinary young master of an official's family. Most likely because of the inconvenience of his legs, he had some inferiority complex. Fu Ming would not lie, Fu Ming would not stand by Yi Mei's side and Fu Ming would not help Yi Mei to deal with her. The most important thing was that Shen Miao stood in front of that child but there were no waves in her heart. There was a connection between mother and son and if she was able to feel Fu Ming, her heart would not be so calm. Yi Hongguang was not Fu Ming but was very similar to Fu Ming. She was almost bewitched, but she quickly regained her composure. There was no mother who understood her own son, so there was no shadow of Fu Ming on Yi Hongguang. This made Shen Miao very disappointed, but at the same time she was relieved. If Fu Ming really became a member of the Yi clan in this life, the Yi clan would use him to deal with Shen Miao. That was what Shen Miao was most unwilling to see. Similar. Xie Jingxing was puzzled. That's why you are especially tolerant of him. There should be this reason. Shen Miao said, facing that face, one would not be able to be ruthless. Moreover, you also know that the main culprit of this matter is someone else. Yi Hongguang was merely being used by someone else. He probably didn't even lie often, so the way he lied made people not know whether to laugh or cry. It is just that I am very curious. Shen Miao said, if this matter is really related to Yi Mei, why would Yi Mei push consort Jing down? This isn't her style of doing things. I always feel that she's too careless. Xie Jingxing smiled. Or, is it just an accident? Accident? At the same time, Yi Mei and Yi Hongguang were on the carriage returning to the mansion. Yi Hongguang was very uneasy. The manservant carried him into the carriage and sat beside Yi Mei. Yi Mei, who usually spoke in a gentle and soft voice, did not speak a single word to him after entering the carriage. Yi Hongguang's face showed some uneasiness. Just as he was about to speak, Yi Mei suddenly said, "Third younger brother, what did you say to Prince Consort?" Yi Mei was also smiling, and this smile was no different from usual, but Yi Hongguang did not know why, but he felt a little afraid. He hesitated for a moment before softly saying, "I said sorry to her." Chapter 1056. Yi Mei's expression slightly changed. "Qin Wang Fei looks like a good person." Yi Hongguang lowered his head and whispered, "I slandered her like that, but she did not get angry and was amiable to me. She is a good person and did not look down on me for being a cripple. Eldest sister, I have lied and wronged a good person. My heart is very uneasy. Did I not say it before?" Yi Mei frowned and said, "If you don't say this, the Emperor and Empress will definitely suspect me. It's fine if they suspect me, but it will implicate the entire Yi family. Do you want to see father and mother implicated? The imperial family people would not care about right and wrong. Father and mother are old and being tormented like this. The matter of face is small, but what if their bodies are injured?" These words were somewhat impolite. Yi Mei had always been polite and kind to Yi Hongguang, and Yi Hongguang also liked this elder sister who looked like a fairy. This was the first time he was reprimanded by Yi Mei like this, and there was some indignation, so Yi Hongguang's heart did not feel good. He dared not say anything more and only heard Yi Mei speaking again. "Moreover, how do you know that she was wronged? Qin Wang Fei herself said that it was not her. The Emperor and Empress also trust her." Yi Hongguang whispered, "Older sister, why must one lie? Why not let them suspect you so that it is necessary to identify Qin Wang Fei?" Anger finally appeared on Yi Mei's face and she looked somewhat sinisterly at Yi Hongguang. "You would rather believe her and not believe this older sister?" Yi Hongguang shook his head. "I just feel that Qin Wang Fei is not such a person." Saying that she believed Shen Miao, Yi Mei's anger could not be expressed in words. Emperor Yonglu, Empress Yenda, Prince Rui, and now even Yi Hongguang. What kind of demonic technique did Shen Miao have that she could win the trust of others? Even she could not gain any advantage from Shen Miao's hands. Thinking of what happened before, Yi Mei could not help but tremble. She did not think that Lu Jing would be arrogant and stupid to this extent. Yi Mei only listened to Yi Maocai's instructions and came over to inquire about the news from Lu Jing. Who knew that Lu Jing's jealousy was so obvious that she deliberately made things difficult for her? Yi Mei was also a person who could keep her composure. However, Lu Jing was the first to get angry. Lu Jing actually wanted to ruin her appearance. How could Yi Mei be the type to suffer losses? In the midst of the dispute, she accidentally pushed Lu Jing down. She fled in panic. She originally wanted to take advantage of the chaos to escape. Yi Maocai would definitely not offend her for her sake. Yi Mei could only rely on herself. Yet, at this time, she found that after being in Long Yi for such a long time, she hadn't fought for a way out for herself. Even with the backing of the Yi family, it was still unclear whether they were friend or foe. However, her luck had never been too bad. She could always find a way out of a hopeless situation. Lu Jing had actually died. Dead men tell no tales. Everything was over. She didn't need to run anymore. After Yi Mei slowly calmed down, she thought of a way to bribe the unfavored talented young man. She knew that no matter what, she would not be able to clear all the doubts, so she simply stirred up the water even more. She made Yi Hongguang testify as well. Yi Mei threatened Yi Hongguang. If he didn't lie, the entire Yi residence would be implicated. Yi Hongguang was timid and had grown up in the Yi residence since young. He was not clear about the situation outside and the ways of the world, so he agreed in fear. But Yi Mei did not think that Yi Hongguang would be so useless that Shen Miao caught his mistakes and pressured him step by step. This act of framing was almost useless at the end, and the Lu family's fear of Xia Yuan made Yi Mei finally understand how terrible it was to offend the residents of Prince Rui. Previously she proposed to Yi Mao Kai to assassinate Shen Miao, and now she instructed Yi Hongguang to slander Shen Miao. Yi Mei always felt that once Xia Yuan found out that she was the one who stirred things up, he would not let her off. Chapter 1057. And today, even though Empress Xiande and Emperor Yongle unexpectedly let her off, Shen Miao did not investigate further. But the more Yi Mei thought about it, the more she felt that something was wrong and suspected that they had a deeper conspiracy. Taking a step back, Yi Mao Kai would know about this matter sooner or later. She had mistakenly killed imperial concubine Jing and caused trouble. Yi Mei really did not know how such a shrewd person like Yi Mao Kai would treat her. Yi Mei's heart was filled with anger, fear and frustration. Long Yi seemed to be her nemesis. When she was in Qinzhou, she could get whatever she wanted, but in Long Yi, she repeatedly ran into a wall. She originally thought that she would have a meteoric rise in the future if she connected with the Yi family. In the end, not only was the Yi family situation unclear, she had also offended someone she should not have offended. She could not stay in Long Yi and had to leave the Yi family. Yi Mei's heart suddenly had this thought. She subconsciously glanced at Yi Hongguang. Yi Hongguang had his head lowered as he silently pulled at the fur of the blanket on his knees and did not see her gaze. Yi Mei's eyes suddenly turned cold. To escape from the Yi family, to escape from Long Yi, it was not an easy matter for her now. It was easy to get on the boat but hard to get off, and there was also Yi Mao Kai watching. But if she continued to stay here, Yi Mei had a feeling that she would not even know how she died. She had to properly discuss this with Yi Ku. Because of the delay of imperial concubine Jing's matter, it was already late when Shen Miao and Xie Jingxing returned to Prince Rui's residence. After bathing and eating, Shen Miao sorted out some letters on the table as she said to Xie Jingxing, "I did not expect that it was like this." Xie Jingxing's subordinates had come to deliver a message. They probably had figured out what had happened in the palace today. They probably guessed that Yi Mei had mistakenly killed Lu Jing. Shen Miao shook her head and said, "The Lu family probably knows that Yi Mei was the one who did it. They secretly hate her and will not show it." Xie Jingxing leaned on the couch as he watched her tidying up and said, "N." Shen Miao asked, "Then what will the emperor do when he finds out the truth? Will he punish Yi Mei? So what if we can't find out?" Xie Jingxing said nonchalantly, "Even if Yi Mei didn't kill by accident, the Yi family wouldn't have kept her alive. Even if Yi Mei did kill by accident, Yi Mao Kai wouldn't feel bad about sacrificing a daughter that the Yi family took in halfway." Xie Jingxing shrugged. "Who cares about concubine Jing and the child in her belly?" Shen Miao sighed. Emperor Yongle hated the Yi clan to the core. He had no expectations for the child that Lu Jing tried so hard to conceive, so he naturally wouldn't care. Perhaps Lu Jing's death would even make Emperor Yongle feel relieved. He didn't love concubine Jing, but she was still his own flesh and blood. How could he face his own son when the Yi clan fell? Of course, this child was born with a congenital deficiency, so living in this world was a torture. The heavens had made the choice for him. Perhaps everything was predestined. Speaking of which, when I entered the palace today, something happened to Lu Jing. The emperor came but you were not around. What did you do? Shen Miao asked. She asked naturally as Xie Jingxing was a very frank person. As long as Shen Miao asked about the imperial family's secrets, he would answer. But today, he looked at Shen Miao and did not speak. Shen Miao was originally waiting for him to answer, but seeing that he did not respond, her hands paused and saw Xie Jingxing smiling at her. His gaze was very gentle, as if he saw her as something precious. Shen Miao was stunned and Xie Jingxing's lips curled up. "Come here." She was stunned, and seeing Xie Jingxing's determined look, she stood up and walked to the side of the bed before asking, "What's the matter?" Xie Jingxing grabbed her wrist and pulled her into his embrace. Shen Miao was caught off guard as she laid in his embrace and struggled to prop herself up. Xie Jingxing did not let her move and rested his chin on her head as he lightly said, "I once asked you a question. Do you still want to be the Empress? Do you remember?" "I remember." Shen Miao paused before replying. "Then I will ask you again now," he said. "I don't want to." Shen Miao said, "My wish is very simple, to protect my loved ones and to live well. Being the Empress is good, but I don't like it. What should I do?" He said with some distress, "I also don't like it, but now I have to do it." The head of the Gao family said that Imperial brother will not live for more than half a year. Today, he wrote the edict for succession. "I don't believe in fate, but there is no time." He sighed softly and placed Shen Miao's hand in his palm. "I know you don't like it, but can you bear with it for me? At least I can promise you that I will never let you become an empress. You will become the only woman of the Emperor of Duliang. The price you have to pay is," he leaned close to Shen Miao's ear and ruthlessly said, "in this life, there is no way back." Chapter 1058. Shen Miao did not speak. However, Xie Jingxing did not let go of her and just locked her in his arms. After a long time, Shen Miao raised her head and looked at him. Xie Jingxing also stared at her. This arrogant man, who looked as if he did not care about anything, had seen him walk from a naughty and mischievous youth to now. The cynicism in his eyes had never changed, but at this moment when he looked at her, there was a little bit of nervousness in his eyes. Shen Miao's heart moved, and in a short moment, she suddenly smiled. She said, "Then what benefits do I have?" Xie Jingxing was startled, and there was a touch of ecstasy in his eyes. He seemed to be relieved, but there was still some disbelief. He said, "Whatever you want, I will give it to you. If what I want, you also want it?" Shen Miao asked. Xie Jingxing raised his eyebrows. "What do you want?" 13 capitals of Yuzhou. It belongs to you." He waved his hands, as if what Shen Miao said was just a little thing like rouge and face powder. Mo Bei Ding Yuan City. Shen Miao looked at his face. "It belongs to you." Xie Jingxing did not even blink. Jiangnanyu Province, Dingxi Donghai, Lin and Qing Lake, Luoyang Ancient City. All belong to you. Xie Jingxing answered smoothly and almost without thinking. If Emperor Yongle heard this, he would be so angry that he would vomit blood. If Emperor Xiao Wu was here, he would also be so angry that he would point at Xie Jingxing's nose and scold him for being a wastrel and then charge Shen Miao as a country-wrecking demoness. But Xie Jingxing was not one who would care about other people's view. Of course, Shen Miao would not really snatch Xie Jingxing's empire. She only felt that Xie Jingxing had too much on his shoulders and hoped to distract his attention. It was good to make a little joke to make him feel more relaxed. "All belong to me. What do you want?" Shen Miao asked. Xie Jingxing laughed evilly and said mischievously, 13 times in one night. Shen Miao. Xie Jingxing pulled Shen Miao, who was about to leave, and said seriously, "Furen, you cannot abandon me." Shen Miao said, "You are so energetic. I will let Uncle Tang bring you some ice to cool down." Xie Jingxing pushed her down and said unhurriedly, "With Furen here, what ice is needed?" Outside, Song Yang covered his ears with a pained expression. It was Jingzhe who was passing by at the side who saw his appearance and came forward with good intentions. Guard Yang, why are you shaking so fiercely? Could it be that you're sick? As he spoke, he reached out to touch Song Yang's forehead. Song Yang was, after all, a young man, and he was forced to listen to a live erotic scene. Just as he was blushing, he was caught off guard by an ice-cold little hand covering his forehead, and he immediately jumped up from the ground. It made Jingzhe jump in shock. Jingzhe looked at her own hands. What happened? Song Yang looked at her as if he had seen a ghost. Suddenly, he rushed forward and ran away as if his butt was on fire, leaving Jingzhe in a daze at the same spot. Tai Yi, who was on the tree, saw everything that happened and did not say anything. He revealed a look of understanding in his heart as he sat quietly hugging his sword. Under the tree, Uncle Tang walked past. Seeing the closed door, he smacked his lips in satisfaction and went to instruct the kitchen to make soup. In the next few days, Xie Jingxing was really busy. Most likely it was because Emperor Yongli's illness had worsened. Xie Jingxing had to personally run many things that the Lu and Yi families had to do personally, thus Xie Jingxing would leave early and return late. While Xie Jingxing was busy, Shen Miao was not idle. The Lu and Yi families had after all been in Long Yi for so many years. What the imperial family wanted to do now was to kill one as a warning to others, but they could not let the imperial family be too cruel, and in the future the officials would have disloyalty. Shen Miao shouldered these tasks and spoke to those noble Furins of Long Ye's officials, but also subtly passed some thoughts to them. Chapter 1059. These noble Furins looked like females, but in a residence, the role of females was indispensable. Originally everyone thought that Shen Miao was after all a Ming Qi person. Ming Qi and the Great Liang were two different countries and there were many different places. Shen Miao was a daughter of a military family and it was even more impossible for her to have any insights. Who knew that after the exchange, Shen Miao had a huge change? Seeing that not only her words were appropriate, she also seemed to know a lot of things that they did not know. Speaking of clothing styles, Shen Miao could keep up. Speaking of the overall situation, Shen Miao could also keep up. She could even talk about those strange things that happened in the north and south of the Yangtze River. Originally in the inner palace of Ming Qi in the last lifetime, even though she did not have a good life, at the end it increased her knowledge. Some of the envoys from other countries would also talk about some strange things. If one knew more, one would naturally be able to use it. When some things were used, there would be excellent results. The things that Xie Jingxing was able to do, Shen Miao might not be able to do it, but the intricate relationship of interests in politics and through quietly guiding to achieve one's goal was what Shen Miao was good at in this lifetime. In just a short few days, those noble Furins were all hot with Shen Miao, and when they hesitated on some matters, they would start to ask Shen Miao for advice. There was no lack of problems with the current situation. Firstly, Shen Miao was the Wang Fei of the residence of Prince Rui and was related to the imperial family, thus they were able to know the current attitude of the imperial family. Secondly, even though Shen Miao was young and was even younger than some of the Furins' daughters, there was a special feeling about her. It was very gentle and settled down, making others feel that her words were trustworthy. Shen Miao and Xie Jingxing were working hard for the upcoming storm in Long Yi Palace. Of course, the Lu and Yi family did not sit still and wait for death. The Lu family had lost a daughter, and seeing Emperor Yongli's attitude becoming more and more unyielding, they finally started to panic and started to mobilize the people that they privately raised. The Yi family was also watching from the sidelines at the start, but now they suddenly found themselves in a situation where they were not in control and seemed to have unknowingly been dragged into the water by the Lu family. Even though they did not do anything, the imperial family's attitude became subtle. From the beginning to the current indulgence, it seemed to explain something. Yi Mei's every move was secretly observed by Shen Miao and Mo Qing. These days, Yi Mao Kai was furious because of the disaster Yi Mei caused in Longye Palace. Yi Mei's actions had offended both Emperor Yonglu and the Lu family. The Lu family was easier to deal with. Although Lu Jingchen was arrogant, he had been living off his past gains for so many years. He did not have a brain. However, Emperor Yonglu was different. The young emperor already had thunderous methods. It was because he didn't blame Yi Mei that Yi Mao Kai felt even more uneasy. He felt that Emperor Yonglu was planning something. Yi Mao Kai vented his anger on Yi Mei, so he grounded Yi Mei for so many days and treated her coldly. Yi Mei had been very sullen these past few days. Today, her confinement was finally lifted. In order to compensate her, Madame Yi brought her to her jewelry shop to choose some jewelry. Who knew that a noble would come to visit the Yi residence on the way? Madame Yi had no choice but to return. Since it was her family's shop, she wasn't afraid. She let Yi Mei pick her own jewelry from the shop and return after she was done. The shopkeeper of the jewelry shop had a fawning look and took out the most expensive items for Yi Mei to choose. Yi Mei's expression was absent-minded as she picked, which made the shopkeeper unable to help but feel a trace of anger. She was only a daughter of a merchant family, and now that the Yi family acknowledged her as their ancestor, it was already a great fortune. But she was still so picky and did not even take a liking to these jewelry. One did not know what kind of riches would enter her eyes. Chapter 1060. Yi Mei did not notice the shopkeeper's expression. She had been treated coldly by Yi Mao Kai for the past few days and was extremely angry. However, she also realized that the Yi family was not a place to stay for long. Yi Mao Kai was a person who prioritized his own interests. For his own interests, he could sacrifice her at any time. She originally wanted to use the Yi family to climb up, but who knew that she was not strong enough and could only be a chess piece. And the path that Yi Mao Kai had arranged for her was not enough for Yi Mei to get what she wanted. Her gaze swept over the dazzling jewelry, but her heart was thinking about how to escape, and if she could escape, where could she escape to? Just as she was thinking, two more people came to the jewelry shop. It was a man and a woman. The man was about 30 years old, dressed in luxurious clothes, had average looks, and was slightly plump. The woman was young, dressed in red and green. As soon as she came in, there was a strong fragrance. One look and one could tell that she was a brothel girl. The woman said sweetly, "Darren is buying bracelets with me, it must be made of gold." The man smiled and said generously, "Today you can pick whatever you want, this prince is in a good mood." It should be some young master who brought a girl from the brothel to be a sucker. The shopkeeper was already dissatisfied with Yi Mei's absent-minded state. Now that there was a new customer, he simply threw Yi Mei to the side and smiled as he placed the jewelry he had just given Yi Mei in front of the woman. He said with a smile, "These are all newly delivered, young lady can take a look." The woman squeezed to Yi Mei's side, and the fragrance made Yi Mei somewhat unhappy. She turned her head to look at the woman, and when she saw the man beside the woman, she could not help but be startled. The man also saw her and was stunned for a moment before exclaiming in pleasant surprise, "Maeve, The woman who was picking jewelry raised her head and looked at Yi Mei warily. The shopkeeper also pricked up his ears. Since this person called Yi Mei Maeve, he naturally had an old friendship with Yi Mei. After all, Yi Mei was the daughter of a merchant. Yi Mei originally wanted to avoid his gaze and leave, but suddenly thought of something and her footsteps stopped. She looked at the shopkeeper again and suddenly said, "Since we've met, let's talk somewhere else." The man seemed to be very eager, and the woman beside him grabbed the man's arm and said, "Darren, you still have to accompany this servant to pick jewelry." The man was impatient, and directly grabbed a few banknotes from his bosom and threw them to the woman, saying, "See for yourself." After receiving the banknote, the woman no longer pestered him. The man and Yi Mei went out together. Yi Mei put on her veil and said, "Let's find a restaurant." In a certain elegant room in the restaurant, the man looked at Yi Mei and asked curiously, "Why do you have so many guards by your side?" Back then, you and Brother Yi disappeared from Qin province without saying a word. I asked people to look for you for a long time, but I didn't expect you to be here. Yi Mei's heart was pounding. This man was none other than her childhood sweetheart. Back then, the Li family was a merchant family in Qinzhou, and this man was the eldest son of the Jin family, Jin Xingming. The Jin family was also a merchant family. Master Jin and Master Li had a good relationship. When Yi Mei was young, Jin Xingming was already a young man. Master Jin also joked about marrying Yi Mei to Jin Xingming. Yi Mei had been ambitious since she was young. Marrying a merchant woman was not her ultimate goal. But even though she hated Jin Xingming, she was very smart and never showed it to Jin Xingming. Instead, she was very considerate and obedient. She charmed Jin Xingming, worshipped her like a god, and loved her like a jewel. Later, the Li couple passed away, and the Li family's shops still needed the Jin family's care. Yi Mei was even more considerate to Jin Xingming. Master Jin was also planning to ask about her marriage. After all, the Li couple was not here, and the only one who could make the decision was Yi Mei herself. Yi Mei was naturally unwilling. In her heart, she would rather be an official's concubine than a merchant's wife. At this time, the Yi family appeared and hit it off. Yi Mei immediately came to Long Yi with Yi Mei. Because of her hatred for the Jin family, she didn't even say a word to the Jin family. Jin Xingming naturally didn't know that she had come to Long Yi. Who knew that they would meet here? Chapter 1061. Yi Mei quickly made up her mind and shook her head. She sighed and said, "When I was in the Li family, I was taken care of by the Jin family and had a good life with second brother. Who knew that someone would suddenly come to my door and say that my biological parents were someone else and that I was actually the daughter of Prime Minister Ye's family? I was bewildered, but they didn't give me time to explain and took me away." Prime Minister Ye's family. Jin Xingming cried out in shock, "Is it that Prime Minister Yi of Longye?" Yi Mei nodded and said, "But when I arrived, I found out that they had the wrong person. But you also know that the Yi family only has a bad young master. They were looking for a relative with great fanfare and got the wrong person. It wasn't good to slap their own face, so they forced me to be the daughter of the Yi family. I originally thought that this would be fine, but who knew that Prime Minister Yi was actually a beast in human skin? He wanted to use me as a bargaining chip in his career and use my marriage to rope others in." Tears streamed down her cheeks as she spoke. She was born beautiful, and now that she was acting like this, Jin Xingming's heart was broken. Jin Xingming said angrily, "How could he be like this? Even a biological daughter can't be so heartless. Not to mention that you are not his daughter, yet he tried in vain to seize your marriage. Damn it. Come, let's go report this to the authorities." "It's no use." Yi Mei shook her head. "Officials protect each other. Not to mention that Yi Mao Kai covers the sky with one hand in Longye. I wanted to write to Qinzhou to ask for your help, but who knew that even the letter would be blocked? Actually, second brother and I have already been placed under house arrest by the Yi family. It is already rare for us to go out like this today." Jin Xingming's face was extremely ugly. He originally liked Yi Mei very much. When Yi Mei and her brother disappeared, Master Jin said that it was because Yi Mei didn't want to marry him, so she ran away. Jin Xingming was still a bit angry, but now that the beauty was crying, how could Jin Xingming still be angry? He could only curse himself in his heart. If only he had discovered Yi Mei's predicament earlier. Yi Mei raised her head and said, "In the past few days, I have been thinking about Big Brother Jean all the time. I only hope that one day I can regain my freedom. Big Brother Jean, can you help me?" Jean Xingming nodded repeatedly. "Help? What can I do?" "Big Brother Jean, I don't ask for anything else. I just want you to help me leave the Yi clan." Yi Mei smiled with tears in her eyes. "If I can be with Big Brother Jean, I won't have to live in fear every day." Jean Xingming's heart almost melted from Yi Mei's words. It must be known that although Yi Mei used to be very gentle to him, it was different now. She had never said anything. It was as if he was looking at her through a veil, making it hard for him to understand her attitude. But now, her words clearly showed that Yi Mei regarded him as a very important person. Although he was a little smug, Jean Xingming did not lose his rationality. The Yi family was the Prime Minister's family, and he was just a young master of the Shang family. He said, the Yi family is very troublesome." Yi Mei didn't say anything, she just looked at him with her beautiful eyes. Jean Xingming's heart shook and he said, "It is not that there is no way. Mei, do you know why I want to come to Longyi?" Yi Mei shook her head. She did not even care about Jean Xingming, and seeing Jean Xingming taking the initiative to talk to her today, it was to make use of him to leave the Yi family. How would she think of this layer? Jean Xingming proudly said, "I have a friend who is also a merchant. Last year he went to Ming Qi and heard that this year he managed to build a relationship with the imperial merchant. Perhaps he would be able to get an official position. I thought about it, and instead of staying in Qin province as an ordinary merchant for a lifetime, it is better to go out and make a living. That friend also invited me along. I came to Longyi to settle a few of the family's businesses and discussed with that friend." Chapter 1062. Originally I was still very hesitant. Jean Xingming said, "After all, father and mother are here, but now that I have met Meiyu, I have nothing to fear. I have decided to go to Ming Qi's Ding capital. I did not think of becoming a high-ranking official, but there will definitely be more to earn." He said, "The Yi family's hand covers the sky, but if one were to escape to Ming Qi, the Yi family's hand would not be able to stretch that far. What do you think, Mayor?" Yi Mei's heart moved, and when Jean Xingming was speaking, her mind was already calculating quickly. Even though there were some things that she had not thought clearly, she still smiled and said, "Naturally it is very good. Older brother Jean, you are indeed Mayor's reliance. No one else in this world can be relied on. Luckily there is older brother Jean." She was delicate and gentle with a myriad of amorous feelings. Jean Xingming's heart jumped when he saw it and involuntarily reached out to touch Yi Mei's little hand. Yi Mei endured the disgust and allowed Jean Xingming to take advantage of her. If it was in the past, she would naturally disdain to do so, but now she had no choice but to compromise. Shen Miao just came out from a foreign's residence, and today she had also participated in a tea party. Those foreigners had gradually accepted Shen Miao's excuse of influencing them, and Xie Jingxing said that the court was much more stable now. She rubbed her neck and was about to board the carriage when she saw a male and female walking out from a tea house at the other end of the street. That female had a veil over her face and one could not see her face, but Shen Miao had dealt with her for a lifetime and was able to recognize that it was Yi Mei from her steps and posture. The male who was talking to Yi Mei seemed to have a very close relationship with her, but Shen Miao was very sharp. No matter if it was etiquette or style of doing things, it did not seem like a son of a noble family and revealed a vulgarity of a peddler. Perhaps he was a merchant or something. Shen Miao turned sideways and the shadow of the carriage blocked her so that Yi Mei could not see her. That male spoke a few more words to Yi Mei, and even though he did not do anything out of line, the relationship between the two seemed to be extraordinary. Yi Mei quickly boarded the carriage and left, and the male turned and walked in another direction. Shen Miao thought about it and instructed Mo Qing, follow that male and inquire about everything that he can. Mo Qing had been secretly monitoring Yi Mei these days, and since this male had a relationship with Yi Mei, it was natural for Shen Miao to let him inquire. Mo Qing received the orders and left. Shen Miao sat in the carriage, but her heart started to ponder. That male did not seem to have a noble background, and Shen Miao was very clear of Yi Mei's character. She placed great importance on nobility and would not speak to commoners. Yet, she went to the tea house with this man, and perhaps even sat down and drank tea. Yi Mei could always make use of everyone around her, especially men. Shen Miao almost immediately thought that perhaps Yi Mei wanted to make use of this man to achieve some goal, or else with her arrogant heart, she would not even bother to talk to such a lowly man. What does she want to do? Yi Mei returned to the Yi mansion in the evening. Yi Maokai, who usually came back very late, was unexpectedly early in the mansion today. Seeing her come in, he stared at her and asked, "Where did you go?" Perhaps it was because of the predicament that the Yi family was facing these days that even Yi Maokai, who had always been like a fish in water, began to feel troubled. His calm and contented air of a scholar had disappeared, and even his amiable appearance began to become gloomy. Yi Mei composed herself and said, "Mother wants me to go to the jewelry shop to pick some jewelry." "Mother?" Yi Maokai replied with a question. Yi Mei's heart was very unhappy with his eccentric tone. Yi Maokai clearly knew that he was not Yi Furan's flesh and blood, but at the start he wanted Yi Mei to pretend to be her. Now it was as if Yi Mei racked her brains to come to the Yi family to be a young lady. Chapter 1063. Seeing that Yi Mei did not speak, Yi Maokai asked again, "Jewelry?" Yi Mei said, "There was nothing that caught one's eye, so one did not pick." "You are very self-aware and know that you cannot take things that are not yours." Yi Maocai's words had a hidden meaning and suddenly changed the topic. "Who was the male that you met on the streets today?" Yi Mei was surprised for a moment and immediately felt anger. Needless to say, it was definitely the actions of the Yi residence's guards that followed her. On the surface those guards were protecting her safety, but in actual fact it was not so. Instead they were monitoring her and reporting her every move to Yi Maokai. Even so, Yi Mei did not dare to anger Yi Maokai and said, "It is a gentleman that I met in Qin province and had a deep relationship with my family. If father does not believe, you can send someone to investigate his background." Ji Mingxing was just a child of the Shang family, so even if Yi Maokai went to investigate, he would not be able to find anything. Yi Maokai saw that she was so calm and his expression relaxed before saying, "Do not think that I do not care about feelings. It is just that there will soon be a big movement in Long Yi City. Since you are the daughter of the Yi family, your every move will be seen by others. If this brings disaster to the Yi family, you and the Yi family will suffer." He then pretended to smile warmly. "Since you are a smart child, you should know what to do and what not to do. You and the Yi family are together, so naturally you have to help each other." When Yi Mei heard Yi Maocai's words, her heart sank and guessed that Yi Maokai was definitely using her to achieve something. She had a plan in her heart, and after a few perfunctory words with Yi Maokai, she then returned to her room. Upon returning to the room, she discovered that Yi Ku was already waiting in the room. Yi Ku saw that she had returned and smiled. "Older sister, where did you go today? Why did you only return now? I have waited for you for a long time." Yi Mei was upset and wanted to tell Yi Ku about Ji Mingxing. Initially in Qin province, Yi Ku actually hoped that Ji Mingxing would be his brother-in-law, as the Jin family could take care of the Li family. It was just that at that time Yi Mei did not look up to Ji Mingxing, and Yi Ku persuaded her for a long time, saying that Ji Mingxing would treat her well. Now if she were to escape to Ming Qi with Ji Mingxing, naturally Yi Ku would bring Yi Ku along. But Yi Mei could not predict Yi Ku's attitude. Do you remember Jin Xingming from the Jin family in Qinzhou? Jin Xingming. Yiku looked at her suspiciously. Yes, why did you suddenly mention him? Suddenly, she thought of something and was shocked. She stood up and said, Sister, don't tell me you've suddenly thought it through and want to marry him now. Yi Mei frowned. Didn't you like him at first? We used to be merchants, but now we are officials. Yiku said, Sister, with your current status, how can Jin Xingming send you? A merchant family marrying an official's daughter, if this gets out, I'm afraid people will laugh their heads off. He seemed very excited. Yi Mei looked at him for a while and asked, Then who do you think I should marry? Not Yi, he. Jin, with Mei, he Jin is said. With Prince. He moved closer mysteriously and said with a smile, Actually, Father wants you to enter the palace. I've seen it for you. The Emperor is young and handsome, and is cold to the Empress. If you enter the palace, with your beauty and talent, one fear that the 6 palaces will be in your pocket. At that time, you and I, sister and brother, will be rich and powerful. Yiku's eyes shone as he spoke, as if he was yearning for the future, like a person who had dug for a long time and finally saw a treasure. Oh. Yi Mei looked at him, You really think so? Older sister, when did you become so unconfident? Yiku patted his chest and said, Believe me. You will definitely become the most distinguished woman in Great Liang. So listen to Father and enter the palace. Father will not harm you. After entering the palace, there is still the Yi family behind you. If this is not a great thing, what is it? Yi Mei smiled, but that smile was somewhat strange. She said, Second younger brother, these days you seem to be very busy. Can you tell older sister what you are busy with? Father is planning to find an official position for me in Longyi. Yiku's eyebrows danced as he said, These days, he is bringing me around to see colleagues. Just as he finished speaking, he suddenly realized something and stopped talking. He looked at Yi Mei with some panic. Yi Mei's expression did not change as she nodded and said, So it is like that. Chapter 1064. So that's how it is. Yiku carefully looked at Yi Mei. Seeing that Yi Mei didn't seem to have any special reaction, he sighed in relief. He probed, Jia, do you feel it's not good? Not good. Yi Mei looked at him in astonishment and then laughed. What's wrong with that? After entering the palace, it will be a life of glory and splendor, a life of riches and splendor. Do you think I'm so stupid that I'd give away the riches and splendor that are within my reach? She said, I originally wanted to marry someone with a high position. The Emperor is the noblest person in the world. There is naturally nothing bad about being the Emperor's woman. As she spoke, Yi Mei regained her flirtatious appearance from before, as if she agreed with what Yiku said. Seeing this, Yiku clapped his hands and said with a smile, I told you. Father was afraid that you wouldn't agree before and wanted me to persuade you. I knew that he was making an unnecessary move. Such a good thing, Jia will naturally agree. You're not an idiot, how can you refuse? He relaxed and actually revealed the reason why he came to persuade Yi Mei on Yi Maocai's orders. Yi Mei's eyes flashed and she said with a smile, Father probably doesn't understand me, but you are my deity, don't you understand me? Jia, say, if you enter the palace and receive the Emperor's favor, don't forget me, your deity. Yiku said, now that Father has brought me into the officialdom, with the help of you, my path will only become smoother. Maybe, the people of Longyi will listen to us siblings. At that time, we will get wind, we will get rain, we will be very proud. As to that nuisance Empress, she's just a decoration. Right now, even that Jing Fei who is pregnant with the dragon seed is gone. If you enter the palace, who in the palace can be your match? It will be smooth sailing. Yi Mei also smiled, naturally so. Yi could seem to be very satisfied with Yi Mei's guarantee and finally resolved his worries. After talking for a while, he excitedly discussed with Yi Mei how he should walk his path of officialdom before leaving. After Yi Ke left, Yi Mei's expression became cold. It was not surprising that Yi Mao Kai had bought over Yi Ke so quickly. What Yi Ke had hoped for the most in his life was to hold power in his hands and summon the wind and summon the rain. Yi Mao Kai drew a picture for Yi Ke, and Yi Ke was moved. This was enough for Yi Ke to sacrifice his sister. Moreover, in Yi Ke's eyes, entering the palace to be the emperor's woman was probably a good thing that could not be asked for, but he did not know that there was danger at every step. This was because Emperor Yonglu was too difficult to control, and there was also the clear-headed Prince Rui watching from the side. Yi Ke and Yi Mei were the same. They were both extremely selfish people. When faced with their own interests, brotherly affection was nothing. Thinking about it, if Yi Ke knew that Yi Mei going to be the emperor's woman was not that good, he would not change his mind, because his own career was more important. But how could Yi Mei be willing to pave the way for Yi Ke? After Yi Ke left, Yi Mei stood up and paced around the room twice, which made her look a little anxious. But she also understood that Yi Ke was now her enemy in some ways. She thought for a long time and finally stood up as if she had made up her mind, but she opened the box in the room. That was the tens of sets of clothes that Madame Yi had made for her when she came back. They were all fashionable styles and the material was also the best. Yi Mei squatted down in front of the box and began to seriously choose. On the other side, Shen Miao also heard the news that Imo Qing had said. Jin Xingming? Shen Miao asked with a frown. Other than his identity as the son of a shop, there is nothing special about him. Imo Qing said, but he suddenly came to Longyi from Qinzhou. He seemed to be dealing with a few businesses, all of which were the Jin family's long-term businesses. To deal with it like this, it indicates that the Jin family will not accept any business in the next few years. Chapter 1065. Not planning to accept business. Jingzhe could not help but ask, then what to eat? It seems that he is preparing to leave. Shen Miao muttered, then is there any news that Jin Xingming has recently left? Imo Qing was startled for a moment before saying, Furen's guess is correct. He also sold some things and converted them into banknotes. It seems that he is going on a long journey and had prepared a large amount of money. Shen Miao understood, go and check again to see if this Jin Xingming has any recent connections with anyone. Also some clothes that he prepared. Clues can be seen as to where he is going and the things that he prepared for travel. A short journey is still a long journey, the northern land is still the southern country. If there are people that are close to him, pay more attention. Also do not relax the investigation on Yi Mei's siblings. If Jin Xingxing and Yi Mei have private dealings, one must follow. Imo Qing received the orders and left. Jingzhe and Guyu were sewing clothes under the lamp when Guyu said, Furen, but what relationship does the Yi family's young lady have with the son of a merchant? Could it be that she is fond of that young Master Jin, so she did not even care about the other's merchant identity and insisted on being together with him? Shen Miao gently smiled and shook her head, do you know about rattan grass? This servant knows. When Jingzhe heard it, she quickly said, when this servant lived in the countryside, there were rattan grass everywhere in the courtyard. Once spring arrives, one must pull them out one by one. If they were not pulled out, they would entangle the other trees to death. Shen Miao said, Yi Mei is very much like that rattan grass. Yi Mei was very much like rattan grass. This rattan grass had a strong vitality and was everywhere. The most important thing was that any man could become her tree, and she would rely on these trees to climb upwards, absorbing the sunlight and rain, growing tenaciously until she climbed to the tallest one. And in the process of her growth, those trees would be entangled by her until they were exhausted of their nutrients and finally died. Jingzhe and Guyu looked at each other in dismay. After a long while, Jingzhe softly said, "Is she that powerful?" This kind of rattan grass looks very strong at first glance, but there is a fatal characteristic. Shen Miao said, once her last tree dies, there would be no other things that could provide her with nutrients and she would follow along. What to rely on would be the most miserable when it is finally taken away. She said. There was no doubt that Yi Mei wanted something from Jin Xingming. As the son of a merchant, since he had finished his business everywhere and seemed to be leaving, it was obvious that Yi Mei wanted to board Xing Xingming's boat and leave the abyss of the Yi family. But how would Shen Miao let her wish come true? Yi Mei's ending, this time let Shen Miao decide it for her. For a few days, Xie Jingxing did not return to the residence. Even Tai Yi was not around. When she asked Song Yang, he did not know anything. She felt that the guards in the Fu were even busier than usual. Not long after, a piece of news came from the capital. The former General Jinan, Lu Jingchen, led his troops in rebellion. He stationed his troops in Ruyang City and occupied the city as a prison. He was officially opposing the royal family. This news shocked the people of Longyi. They had heard that Lu Jingchen already had many soldiers under him. In addition, he had been secretly recruiting soldiers and buying horses for so many years, expanding his military strength. Ruyang City was vast to begin with, so it was surprising that he could occupy it so easily. The Lu family indeed had the courage to go against the royal family. The Shen family's guards that Shen Miao brought over were somewhat bewildered, but Shen Miao was neither fast nor slow. There was an ancient saying that first suppress then raise. Most likely Xie Jingxing and Emperor Yongle wanted to do this. First let the Lu family have a taste of sweetness. Lu Jingchen, that kind of martial artist, would naturally feel that the imperial family was afraid of him and would lower their guard and become more arrogant. This would then allow the imperial family to make better arrangements and catch the Lu family in one fell swoop. Chapter 1066. Even though she had confidence in Xie Jingxing, Shen Miao did not think that the Lu family had the ability to contend against the Xie family. What Shen Miao was worried about was another matter. Although the Lu family was arrogant, they were only targeting the imperial family. In the eyes of the common people, the Lu family was just like the Xie family in the past. Even though it was a rebellion, the Lu family had their mouths. The first thing they said was that the imperial family had forced them to rebel. They even said that the death of Emperor Xiaowu had something to do with Emperor Yongle. They said that Empress Dowager Jingxian was a relative who monopolized power and conspired with Emperor Yongle and his mother to kill Emperor Xiaowu and the other princes. The world was in an uproar. It was true that when Emperor Xiaowu passed away, Empress Xiao dealt with the rest of the princes one by one in a thunderous manner. Naturally, she did not leave any evidence behind. But in the eyes of some people, it was strange. The common people were also like this, just that even though they had suspicions, they did not dare to speak it out. Afterwards Empress Dowager Jingxian passed away and Emperor Yongle succeeded the throne. Under his rule, Great Liang prospered, so no one mentioned the past again. However, this did not mean that the people had completely forgotten about this matter. On the contrary, when the Lu family's words came out, after the commoners of the Great Liang were shocked, they started to hesitate. A small portion of the commoners really believed the Lu family's words, but the majority of the commoners were skeptical. However, if an emperor could not make the people submit to him, it would always be a disaster in the future. Just like Empress Xiao in the past, even though she did it cleanly and efficiently, she also brought trouble to Emperor Yongle. Even if Emperor Yongle used thunderous methods to shut the mouths of the commoners and cut off the rumors in the marketplace, there was still a path to walk. Was he going to use such methods to suppress the rumors for the rest of his life? The Lu family is really too shameless. Jingzhi said, they actually dared to splash dirty water onto the emperor. Guyu sighed, since it is a rebellion, it is either you die or I live. What is the point of pouring a basin of dirty water? He continued, the Lu family is really ruthless. They want both sides to suffer, and they want to drag the royal family into this. Even if they win, they might not win the hearts of the people in the future. Shen Miao frowned and thought for a moment before saying, bring a pen and paper. She then walked to the table. Jingzhi was surprised for a moment before asking, Furen, want to write a letter back to Ming Qi? Shen Miao shook her head, I need a very big piece of paper, bigger than the notice of the prisoners at the city gates. Jingzhi and Guyu had seen Shen Miao's writing before, it was when she sent the letter to Ming Qi or when she sent the news to Pei Lang. It was just that at that time Shen Miao was calm and did not see anything wrong with it. But the Shen Miao today looked different. She was solemn, as if she was writing about something important that weighed more than 1,000 caddies. She was also agitated, reminding one of the older students in the Hanlin Academy who argued with the group of scholars. In the end, he wrote faster and faster. He practically didn't need to think, and he wrote fluently in one go. Putting down the brush, he picked up the huge piece of white paper with both hands and shook it, as if he wanted to shake it dry. Jingzhi and Guyu leaned over to take a look and saw that there were black words on that huge piece of white paper. Shen Miao's words were soft and mellow, but the words at the top had a hidden sharpness, as if a sharp sword was going to jump out from the paper and pierce into one's heart. What? What is this? The two maids were illiterate but faintly felt that this was a very important thing. No one cares about the truth. Shen Miao said, but the result is very important. She dried the paper again and again until the ink was completely dry before she said to Jingzhi, bring this thing to the bookstore and make 3,000 copies. Then let the guards in the residence post it everywhere during the night. Shen Miao said, be quick. Chapter 1067. Guyu Jingzhi did not dare to delay and complied. She carefully carried the paper that was filled with words out of the door. Shen Miao looked at the back view of the two people leaving and gently sighed in relief. In this world, martial arts could determine the universe, while literature could bring peace to the world. Since the Lu family wanted to use this opportunity to stir up trouble, they might as well take the initiative to boost their own morale. The path of civil and military affairs had always been the same. His Lu family had their tongues in a mess, but she also had her treacherous path of military affairs. It was still unknown who would emerge victorious. Not only did he want the Lu family to lose, he wanted the Lu family to lose so badly that they had to hold their breath. That night, Xie Jingxing still did not return. Shen Miao dressed and ate alone, and managed the residence of Prince Rui in an orderly manner. From time to time, she would go to the noble Furen's small gatherings in the Ding capital and quietly calm their emotions. It was only when she was sleeping at night that she felt a little cold. After thinking for a while, Xie Jingxing covered himself with the quilt and closed his eyes to sleep. Early the next morning, when the sunlight of Long Yi shone on every corner of the city, some sharp-eyed people noticed that there was a piece of white paper pasted on the door of the house. On it, there was a large piece of densely packed words written on it. The owner was a butcher and didn't understand. Coincidentally, he saw his neighbor, Scholar Ma, walking past and said, "Scholar Ma, you're a scholar. Why don't you take a look at this?" Scholar Ma walked to the door of the butcher's shop and saw the calligraphy. He first sighed and said, "Good calligraphy." Then, he leaned closer and read it word by word, "A letter to all my fellow countrymen, in just a short span of a few days." The letter to inform the world to his compatriots had spread to all the streets and alleys, even the other places of the great Liang knew about it. The snow-white pieces of paper were everywhere. Most of the scholars kept them in their bosoms, but most of them wanted to get a closer look at the person who wrote it. The young people in the Hanlon Academy were reading the book. In the past, when the dynasty was weak, it was still able to live peacefully. Now that it is prosperous, why would it be chaotic? His Majesty is at hand, the granaries are full, the weather is good, and today, as a traitor, you suspect your master, rebel against your Majesty, go against reason and overstep your Tao. Are you ashamed? Are you ashamed? How disloyal, unjust, and heartless. The scholar was surrounded by a large group of students. When they heard this, they all revealed expressions of shame, but there were also some who were enraged. This book first talked about the recent rebellion of the Liu clan. First, it scolded the traitors of the Liu clan for committing such a treacherous and heinous act. Then, it said that the traitors spread rumors. This rumor was actually believed by many people. It was truly chilling. During the reign of Emperor Yongle, the people of Great Liang lived and worked in peace and contentment, the country was prosperous and the people were at peace. It was even better than when Emperor Xiaowu was on the throne. The people did not consider the benevolence and merits of the emperor, but listened to the lies of a traitor. Were they not ashamed? Aren't you blushing? He also talked about the way of literature and martial arts. The Great Liang had many talented people, there were scholars and there were military examinations. The ones who passed the military examination should think of ways to resist the treacherous officials and serve the Junju. The scholars should even more seriously listen and not add oil to the fire. This, a letter to the fellow citizens of the world, was brilliant and incisive. Even if one disregarded its political views, it was still a top-notch work. Moreover, what he said was extremely reasonable. It made people not only feel ashamed but also reflect on it. As for the rumors of the Liu clan, it collapsed on its own. Emperor Yongle was such a good emperor and was so kind to the people, not to mention the court officials. Since the Liu clan rebelled, they were definitely not loyal. It was a pity that they were almost incited by ignorance, and it was really too shameful. Those scholars felt ashamed and also felt that the person who wrote this book was definitely a talented person and wanted to make friends with him. Unfortunately, they could not find the person behind the scenes. As for those young students who passed the military examination, their heart to serve the country was stirred up by this book. They could not wait to join the troops to attack the Liu clan and personally behead the traitor. Chapter 1068. Thus the matter of Emperor Yongle killing his father and usurping the throne was no longer mentioned by anyone. Song Yang had pasted up the notice for an entire night and did not expect that there would be so many people responding to it, and even more did not expect that the matter of the rumors would be resolved so easily. He was full of admiration towards Shen Miao and said, "Foreign, this move of yours is comparable to those scholars in the palace. One had never seen these scholars chasing after a person like this. If they knew of Furen's identity, they would definitely be extremely surprised." Shen Miao smiled. The Liu family is currently in Ruyang and do not care about Long Ye's matters. At most they would arrange for some people to spread rumors among the commoners. But the commoners of the Great Liang are not fools. Two lies, one is groundless and the other is well-founded. Which one would you believe? Song Yang pondered. However, that is because the commoners' hearts are more inclined towards His Majesty, so it was easy to pull them over. If the Liu family obtained the hearts of the people, their position would be indestructible, and with these rumors, it would be futile even if I write 10 of these things. Song Yang scratched his head. No matter what, Furen had made a good move. When Master returns, he would definitely be very happy. Moreover, Furen originally came out from the general residence and one did not expect to have such talent. Shen Miao declined to comment. Talent? The letter to fellow countrymen to the world was just a letter to deceive the people of the world. One's heart needed to be managed, and if the Lu family wanted to, naturally they would be able to do it. At the beginning, when Fu Xiuyi ascended to the throne, there were naturally doubts, but it was Pei Lang who relied on the letter to fellow countrymen to turn black into white, washing Fu Xiuyi clean and not a demon, making him the one and only wise ruler of Mingqi. Now she used this move on the Lu family. A tooth for a tooth, an eye for an eye. It was impossible for the Lu family to destroy the imperial family's reputation because of this. At the same time, in a small town in the great Liangxiong state, a green-clad male was walking on the streets with his hands behind his back. The place he passed by happened to have a school, and the teacher in that school was an old man over 60 years of age. He was shaking his head as he read, "In the past, when the dynasty was weak, it was still peaceful. Now that it is prosperous, why is there chaos? His Majesty is at hand, the granaries are full, the weather is good, and today, as a traitor, you suspect your master, rebel against your Majesty, go against reason and overstep your Tao. Are you ashamed? Are you ashamed? How disloyal, unjust, and heartless." The green-robed man stopped in his tracks and involuntarily looked in that direction. After the old man read a paragraph, he said, "This is the widely circulated letter to fellow brethren to the world in Longyi. This old man only has one copy. Make a copy of it and hand it in tomorrow." Pei Lang was stunned for a moment, then he thought of something and couldn't help but laugh softly. After laughing for a while, his eyes dimmed again. He glanced at the headmaster who was shaking his head and left. In Weiyang Palace, Empress Xianda was also holding a letter in her hand. She smiled and read it to Emperor Yonglu. Emperor Yonglu sat on the chair. His face was slightly pale, but his expression was unprecedentedly gentle. "Jing Xing has really married a treasure." Empress Xianda smiled and said, "I thought she was a female general from a family of generals, but she is a female Zhuang Yuan who can disturb people's hearts. Now the schools in Longyi are secretly investigating who the person who wrote this letter is, but they don't know that it is a woman." Emperor Yonglu snorted softly and said, "Sly as a fox. She is helping you." Empress Xianda was unconcerned and said, "Thanks to her, the messy rumors outside have all died down. Isn't that good?" "I don't care," Emperor Yonglu said. Empress Xianda said, "You don't care, but you have to plan for Jing Xing and the rest." Chapter 1069. Emperor Yonglu did not speak. After a while, Emperor Yonglu called out, "Qingjin." Empress Xianda replied with a "hmm." Suddenly, she was stunned and turned to look at Emperor Yonglu. Qingjin was her maiden name, but she had not heard anyone call her this name for a long time. Emperor Yonglu did not look at her, but focused on the incense burning in his mouth. He asked, "Do you regret it?" Empress Qingjin smiled, "I have never regretted it. After I die, follow Jing Xing. If you meet someone good, remarry." Emperor Yonglu said, "Change your name, change your identity. You'll be fine. You'll have a good life." Empress Xianda's eyes welled up with tears. She forced them down and looked at Emperor Yonglu. "In your Majesty's eyes, am I so unworthy?" She seemed to have thought of something and laughed at herself. "That's true. In your Majesty's eyes, I have never been important." With that, she stood up and said to Emperor Yonglu, "I understand. I will do as your Majesty wishes." She took the lead and left. Aunt Tao saw this and wanted to persuade her, but in the end, she could not. Empress Xianda had a good temperament and did not seem to have anything to be angry about. After living with Emperor Yonglu for so many years, she had never blushed with him. Today was the first time she lost her temper at him. Emperor Yonglu looked at the burning incense. Half of the incense had turned to dust. The fragrance that lingered in the air would dissipate one day. It was like a person's memory and affection. Yi Mei dressed up for a long time in the room. She was already very beautiful. Ever since she came to the Yi residence, with Madame Ye's nourishment, she should have become even more beautiful. But for some reason, she did not feel as radiant as she was when she first came. Perhaps there was already a hint of fatigue on his face. Today, she spent a long time in the house before finally choosing a peach-pink chiffon dress. The dress was embroidered with peach blossoms. She then carefully groomed and dressed herself up. Her eyes sparkled and she gave off the feeling of a stunningly beautiful woman. When she walked out of the door, she happened to meet Yiku. Yiku looked at her in surprise and asked, "Sister, where are you going?" "Going to Miss Sun's residence to drink tea," Yi Mei said with a smile. Yiku did not suspect anything. Moreover, the Yi family's guards were following them. Yi Mei brought the guards out of the door. She put on her veil and really went to Miss Sun's residence. Even though the Su clan's official position in Longyi wasn't high, they weren't commoners either. Yi Mei entered the Sun residence and was led to a small room by someone. When she entered the small room, she saw Jin Xingming, who had been waiting for a long time. When Jin Xingming saw Yi Mei, his eyes lit up and revealed a look of amazement as he said with some infatuation, "Mei, you are really becoming more and more beautiful." The more disgusted Yi Mei felt, the sweeter the smile on her face. She said in an aggrieved manner, "It was not easy to go out today. I almost thought that I would not be able to see Brother Jin. If it weren't for the old friendship between me and Big Brother Sun, who sent you an invitation in the name of his sister, I'm afraid it wouldn't have been easy to meet you." Jin Xingming sighed. Yi Mei said with a smile, "It's all Brother Jin's ability." Her words were sweet and her face pretty, making Jin Xingming's heart burst with joy. Just as he was feeling happy, he suddenly heard Yi Mei say, "But when will Brother Jin take me out of the Yi residence? I really don't want to stay in the Yi residence a moment longer." Jin Xingming said, "Even so, we still need to plan carefully. After all, the Yi family isn't a small family. We need to think of a foolproof plan." Yi Mei laughed coldly in her heart. There was no foolproof plan in the world. It was just Jin Xingming's evasion. It seemed that he had secretly investigated the Yi residence and knew of Yi Maocai's power, so he retreated. She raised her face and said pitifully, "If this drags on, when will there be an end? I don't ask for anything, I don't want the Yi family's wealth, I just want to live happily with Brother Jin." Not many men could resist such sweet words, not to mention that the person who spoke was a rare beauty in the world. Her eyes were moving, her words were soft, and every move was teasing as if it was a silent invitation. Jin Xingming felt that his throat was somewhat dry, but he saw Yi Mei licking her lips even more helplessly. He couldn't bear it anymore and didn't continue to bear it. He suddenly grabbed Yi Mei's hand and impulsively said, "For Mei, I naturally am not afraid of anything. But Mei is so beautiful, how can my heart be held in the palm of Mei's hand?" He used some more strength and hugged Yi Mei tightly in his arms, saying, "Mei, if you become mine, I will definitely save you as soon as possible." Yi Mei wanted to vomit, but that hesitation only lasted for a short moment. Her mind was quickly calculating some things, and in the next moment, her hands were like snakes as they climbed around Jin Xingming's neck. She breathed into his ear and said, "Okay." Chapter 1070. The night was short, and if it was during the day, one would feel that it was not enough. The mosquito net was filled with a charming smell, and after a long while, there was the sound of clothes being worn. Jin Xingming caressed Yi Mei's smooth back, and there was still some satisfaction on his face as he said, "Mayor, why not stay with me for a while? The sky is not dark yet, why return so early?" Yi Mei's back was facing Jin Xingming and there was a trace of anger in her eyes, but when she turned her head around, Her eyes were overflowing with charm as she smiled. "Since older brother Jean cannot bear to part with me, then quickly bring me out of the Yi family. Yi Mao Kai keeps me under tight control, and these days he often urges me to enter the palace. If I were to enter the palace, then I would not be fated to be with older brother Jean in this lifetime." When Jin Xingming heard that Yi Mei wanted to enter the palace, he immediately sat up straight and said, "Cannot." If it was in the past, Jin Xingming would not know the taste of Yi Mei, but now that he had flipped the Yuan and Phoenix upside down, he could not bear to let go. He simply wanted to die on Yi Mei's body, and if he were to meet other females in the future, he would have turned into a block of wood. A man's entire life was nothing more than money, power and sex. After eating fine rice, it was hard to eat cornbread. Jin Xingming was not willing to hand Yi Mei over to others, so naturally he was anxious. Yi Mei snuggled into his embrace and softly said, "Naturally I am not willing. I only have older brother Jin in my heart, but now I have no choice but to do so. So I want to leave quickly, and when older brother Jin and I reach Ming Qi, we can be a pair of celestial companions and be free and unfettered every day." The beauty was affectionate and righteous, and Jin Xingming got a sweet taste, so his heart was complacent. In a moment of lofty sentiments, he said, "That is right. Today I will get people to prepare the things, and to ensure safety, we will take the waterway route. This waterway route is hidden, and even though it is dangerous, it is faster than other routes." Yi Mei nodded her head. "In order to prevent Yi Mao Kai from having any suspicions, we will meet here 5 days later. Before that, older brother Jin should settle the matters of leaving so that I can deal with the people of the Yi residence." Jin Xingming complied, and the two of them tangled together for a while before Yi Mei tidied up her clothes and walked out of the door as if nothing had happened. She left the Sun family's mansion and got on the carriage. The guards of the Yi mansion saw that she was fine, so they didn't think much about it. Yi Mei boarded the carriage and lifted up her sleeves. Her fair, jade-like arms were mottled with red marks. Jin Xingming was impatient and rude. Yi Mei was also exhausted. She looked at him for a while and put down her sleeves. She had always been a greedy person, but today, she had given herself to someone like Jin Xingming. All of this was thanks to Yi Mao Kai. If Yi Mao Kai hadn't tricked her into boarding a pirate ship, she wouldn't have ended up like this. Since she was going to leave the Yi residence had to give her some compensation. Otherwise, wouldn't all these days of compromising have been in vain? A trace of ruthlessness flashed in her eyes. 5 days later, Xie Jingxing returned. In the Battle of Ruyang City, the Lu clan was utterly defeated. For so many years, the Lu family had thought that they had been recruiting soldiers and buying horses, secretly accumulating their strength. Little did they know that their opponents were the same. Even his opponents were more diligent than him. From the day Emperor Yonglub ascended the throne, they started to plan on how to pull the Lu family down. After so many years of planning, how could the Lu family be able to compete with them? And the true power that Emperor Yonglub had revealed shocked some of the officials in court, as if a bucket of cold water was poured over their heads. They finally understood that the young emperor that was suppressed by Emperor Xiao Wu and had to rely on Empress Dowager Jing Xian's support, had unknowingly grown into a ferocious beast. Lu Jingchun was a madman. When Ruyang City was breached, he knew that the situation was hopeless, and when he had no other choice, he rushed into the house and personally slaughtered his wife and daughter, including Lu Wan, whom he had always doted on. At that time Gao Yang and Ji Yushu were also present and saw that Lu Wan's eyes widened as she slowly fell down, as if she did not think that she would die in her father's hands at the last moment. Chapter 1071. Xie Jingxing ended Lu Jingchun. When Lu Jingchun died, he laughed maniacally and shouted, "This old one was unrivaled in one's entire life and now die in the hands of a brat. Not reconciled." Xie Jingxing chopped off his head and said lightly, ignorant. At this point, the Lu family that had occupied the Great Liang for 2 dynasties disappeared without a trace. The remaining forces of the Lu family fled in all directions and were all killed by the Mou army. When Shen Miao heard these, she was very emotional. The rise and fall of an aristocratic family looked very simple, but in fact there were signs a long time ago. The Lu family was arrogant and had rebellious thoughts, so the imperial family did not spare any effort to kill them. Xie Jingxing said, but when I returned, I heard that there was a book to inform the world that was circulating in the marketplace. He looked at Shen Miao and his lips hooked up. All the scholars in the world want to get to know one another. One do not know which scholar or hero is it. Shen Miao held back her laughter, do not know. One have to let the Mou army search. Xie Jingxing raised his brows, if found, if it is a male, then become sworn brothers. If it is a female, then what? Shen Miao stared at him coldly, as if he was not satisfied with her answer, she would sharpen her knife. Xie Jingxing said seriously, drag them out and behead them. Who is so bold to dare to be more talented than my Furen? Shen Miao could not hold back her laughter. Xie Jingxing saw her smile like a blooming magnolia, gentle and pretty, and his heart moved. He suddenly stood up and carried her horizontally and walked to the bedside to put her down. Shen Miao struggled, you have not bathed. Do not move. Let me carry for a while. He turned over and Shen Miao laid on top of him. Xie Jingxing hugged her and buried his face in her shoulder. Shen Miao was somewhat tickled by his breath but heard him say, Ming Qi might be fighting over. Shen Miao was startled and spoke suspiciously, what? Lu Jingchen revealed Imperial older brother's secret before he died. Xie Jingxing's voice did not have any joy or anger as he said, it seems that Fu Xiuyi also know. Fu Xiuyi would not miss this opportunity. Actually before Lu Jingchen died, he said to Xie Jingxing, make a guess, when will the Emperor of Ming Qi know that your short-lived eldest brother will not live past this year? Shen Miao was surprised, how did Lu Jingchen know? It's hard to guard against family thieves day and night. Moreover, the palace is complicated. It's possible that it came from the palace. Xie Jingxing said, the Lu family should want to use this information to threaten Imperial older brother, but one did not know why they changed their mind and chose to inform Fu Xiuyi. Treason. Shen Miao frowned. Not considered. Xie Jingxing said, with Lu Jingchuan's personality, it should be a life and death struggle. When Shen Miao heard it, she somewhat agreed. Previously, Lu Jingchen had even put up posters everywhere saying that Emperor Yongle had killed the emperor and seized the throne in order to destroy the reputation of the imperial family. At that time, he did not reveal the secret that Emperor Yongle did not have long to live. Perhaps it was because he wanted to keep this secret. In the end, it would become his trump card, the final fatal blow. It was just that Lu Jingchen was not a person who could keep his composure. He did not know how Xie Jingxing had provoked him. Perhaps he felt that the Xie family was powerless to reverse the situation, so he might as well tell Xie Jingxing this news before he died. Shen Miao said, correct. It is indeed impossible for Fu Xiuyi to give up this opportunity. Fu Xiuyi's character was good at seizing the people, things and opportunities that he could make use of. Perhaps from his point of view, once an emperor who did not have long to live had an accident, the Great Liang would definitely be in chaos, so it would be the best time to go to war. She thought for a while, it is just that the current Ming Qi does not have the qualifications to go against the Great Liang. Fu Xiuyi must have done something secretly and would only take action after he had enough confidence. Chapter 1072. Xie Jingxing said, before that, first clean up the Yi family. Yi family. Shen Miao said, you plan to wipe out the entire Yi family in one fell swoop. Xie Jingxing snapped his fingers, why not keep them for the new year? I will settle the Yi siblings and gift them to you. You can deal with them however you want. Shen Miao took his hand over. Xie Jingxing's wrist was still tied with her red rope as she said, you must be careful. Xie Jingxing and Shen Miao's conjecture about Fu Xiuyi was confirmed on the second day. No one thought that Fu Xiuyi would be so impatient that it could be said that he did not care about anything. Shen Qiu's family letter arrived. It was different from the previous letters. Most of the previous letters would be about Shen Xian and the rest's daily life, to show Shen Miao that they were living well. But this letter looked very sloppy. It was obvious that the letter was written in a hurry. Looking at the time, it was a long time ago, which meant that a lot of time was wasted when the letter reached Shen Miao's hands. Opening the letter, Shen Miao and Xie Jingxing read 10 lines at a glance, and after reading it, they were silent. Fu Xiuyi made his move. It was not that he was firing at the Great Liang, but at the Shen family. Emperor Wenhui was seriously ill and entrusted Fu Xiuyi with full authority to supervise the court matters. Fu Xiuyi fabricated the evidence of the Shen family's crimes and directly encircled the Shen family. And the Shen family's army was previously taken back by the imperial family of Mingqi. It was changed beyond recognition, and there were many spies mixed in, but the Shen family's army was crippled. Fu Xiuyi deceived the Mingqi's commoners and directly made such a rude move against the Shen family. This time Shen Xian was already prepared and had already started to privately unite the other officials who were dissatisfied with the Mingqi's imperial family. Even though those officials were small officials, but their strength was still greater than a lone wolf and horse. Secondly, Luo Lianing and Luo Liantai, who were far away in the Shaochun city, also brought the Luo family's army and rushed over to the Ding capital. The Luo family's army was raised by the Luo family, and rather than saying that it was the emperor's army, it would be better to say that it only listened to the Luo family's orders. In addition, they had been trained under Shen Xian's hands for the past few years, so Shen Xian was able to use the Luo family's army with ease. Other than these, there were also the people that Xie Jingxing had left in the Ding capital. At this point, everyone in the Qin family finally knew Xie Jingxing's identity. Even though they were shocked, they did not feel disgusted because of the current situation. In addition, Xie Jingxing was honest with Shen Xian previously, so they did not bother to reprimand him. Even though Xie Jingxing's men were few in number, they were extremely elite. He was especially outstanding in the field of gathering information. Fu Xiuyi thought that he would be able to take down the gradually weakening Shen family in a short period of time, but he did not expect that the Shen family had been preparing for this day for a long time. Not only did he not manage to take down the Shen family in one fell swoop, he seemed to be stuck in a dead end, wasting his military strength. In Shen Qiu's letter, he said that the Shen family was now in conflict with the imperial family and had left the Ding capital. Even though Fu Xiuyi's men were in hot pursuit, the Shen family did not let them reap any benefits. Now Shen Xian was discussing with the various officials whether they should overthrow this bastard imperial power. As for the final outcome of this matter, Shen Qiu did not mention it. Shen Miao also knew that the Shen family had been loyal for generations, especially old General Shen, who had a heart of loyalty. Now that they had become enemies with the imperial power, it was already treason and heresy. After overthrowing the imperial power, even if it was a success, who would be the emperor? To support a new ruler, and all the princes of Mingqi were not good people, so why not just establish oneself as king? Shen Xian definitely did not have that idea. At the end of the letter, Shen Qiu mentioned one thing. Currently the Shen family did not stay in the Ding capital because Fu Xiuyi's people were everywhere in the Ding capital, thus the Shen family would only be at a disadvantage. They had retreated to the Hongguan Valley area, but in the surrounding villages, they discovered a number of Qin people. Chapter 1073. The letter ended here. Shen Miao was silent for a long time before saying, Fu Xiu has started to make his move. Qin country's people appeared in Hongguan Valley, so it is highly possible that Qin and Qi have joined forces. Even if not, Fu Xiu must have this idea. Xie Jingxing nodded his head and looked at Shen Miao. You are not worried about your father. It is useless to worry. Shen Miao said, now that I am thousands of miles away, even if I strategize, one would not be able to grasp many variables. Moreover, talking about controlling the enemy, I believe that my father, mother and eldest brother are not ordinary people. As long as they are no longer foolishly loyal to the imperial family, there will be a chance of victory. Xie Jingxing's lips hooked up. Actually, it is all the same. Shen Miao looked at him and frowned. What do you mean? Xie Jingxing pinched her face again. If Qin and Qi join forces, it can only mean one thing. They will attack the Great Liang as soon as possible and will definitely invade from the borders. Father-in-law and us are actually standing on the same side. If father-in-law does not want to support a new ruler and also does not want to establish his own imperial power, then swallow up Ming Qi and destroy the Great Qin. When the three countries become one, naturally there would be no other choice. Shen Miao's heart moved. She had actually thought that there would be such a situation. In the last lifetime, the Great Liang did not destroy the Qin country, attacked the Ding capital and took down Ming Qi. One would think that in the future the three countries would belong to the Great Liang and there would only be one emperor in the world. But can you do it? Shen Miao asked. The emperor's secret is already known by Fu Xiu. Without thinking, I know that he will definitely release the news. At that time when Long Yi will be in chaos, you will have to shoulder many things. If Qin and Qi join forces, I believe that they will not be the Great Liang's match, but the process would definitely be very difficult. Xie Jingxing looked at her. Young lady, did anyone tell you before to not doubt a man's ability or not? Shen Miao paused. Even at such a time, Xie Jingxing still had the ability to make jokes, so she really felt that she had nothing to say. You watch, he said. The collapse of the Lu family shocked the entire Longye. But because of the letter to the world, the people applauded. After all, the Lu family had done such a rebellious thing, so they shouldn't blame the royal family for being ruthless. Because of this, the court officials had a new structure. Those who had been with the Lu family, those who were restless between the Lu family and the imperial family, those who were determined to oppose the Lu family, each had a new plan. Those who stood on the right team were naturally overjoyed, while those who stood on the wrong team were bewildered. Emperor Yonglu was definitely not a benevolent emperor who only knew how to pamper his concubines. He was indeed the son of Emperor Xiaowu. He would not be soft-hearted when he needed to be. In the past, Jing Fei had been the most favored concubine in the Hogong. Now that Emperor Yonglu was going against the Lu family, he didn't even think about the feelings of the past, much less the child in Jing Fei's stomach. Even those who were observant could see that Emperor Yonglu had endured for many years to deal with the Lu family. For an emperor to have this kind of skill and temperament was truly daunting. The court officials were more afraid of him because of this and were much more well-behaved. And the Yi family, which was as famous as the Lu family, was now like an ant on a hot pan, anxious and uneasy. No one thought that Emperor Yonglu would make a move just like that, and even more did not think that the Lu family would fall so quickly. Even Yi Maokai, who considered himself to be astute, suddenly sensed that something was wrong. He regretted now that he did not surrender earlier when the imperial family had the intention to recruit the Yi family. Now, he had lost this opportunity in vain. He had indeed lost this opportunity because Yi Maokai discovered that Emperor Yonglu had already started to deal with the Yi family's forces. Chapter 1074. The Yi family was different from the Lu family. The Lu family was a general with their own soldiers, while the Yi family was a civil official. Most of the time, they could only play a supporting role. His connections, power, and connections were all things that everyone fought over. But now, with the fall of the Lu family, everything had collapsed. The Lu clan had so many foundation forces and soldiers, but they all fell at the hands of Emperor Yonglu, not to mention the Yi clan. But Yi Mao Kai observed the situation, and in addition to his understanding of Emperor Yongli's style of doing things from the Lu family's matter, he felt even more hopeless. He knew that Emperor Yongli's Yi family would definitely not let them go, and would definitely kill them all. On one hand, Yi Mao Kai was angry at the Lu family for their arrogance, but on the other hand, it was too late for regrets. Yi Mao Kai began to prepare for his escape. In the worst-case scenario, he would send Yi Hongguang away. He didn't care that much about Yi Mei and Yi Ku, but Yi Hongguang was his only son. He had to leave a successor for the Yi family. While Yi Mao Kai was busy, Yi Mei was not idle. Today, she had returned from young Miss Sun's residence and had a good time with Jin Xingming. Jin Xingming had already promised to take her away in 3 days. These past few days, Yi Mao Kai had loosened up a lot on Yi Mei. He didn't seem to care where she went or who she met. Not only was Yi Mei not happy because of this, she became more and more nervous. Because Yi Mao Kai could barely take care of himself, he had no time to care about her life and death. I'm afraid the Yi clan is about to reach a very critical moment. When it came to the Lu family, although Yi Mei didn't know what had happened, she could faintly feel that Yi Mao Kai was afraid. What could he be afraid of? Naturally, he would end up like the Lu family. On this day, she came back a little late. As soon as she entered the room, she saw Yi Ku looking left and right in her room, as if he was waiting for her. Speaking of which, Yi Mei hadn't seen Yi Ku for a few days. These days, she was calculating the situation after escaping to Ming Qi with Jin Xingming. Yi Mei really did not have any plans for Yi Ku, or perhaps from the beginning, in Yi Mei's escape plan, there was no existence of Yi Ku. A person who Yi Mei already felt was useless and would only drag her down, and even had selfish intentions towards her, Yi Mei immediately abandoned. Seeing her come back, Yi Ku asked, "Sis, where did you go? Why are you only back now? Miss Sun asked me for a handkerchief last time. I just finished embroidering it yesterday. I will send it to her today." Yi Ku grumbled, "You are now the young lady of the Prime Minister's residence. What right does the young lady of the Sun family have to order you around?" Yi Mei ignored his words and sat down. Seeing that Yi Ku's brows were furrowed with anxiety, she asked, "How have you been these days? Didn't father bring you around to meet your colleagues? Don't mention it." When Yi Ku heard this, he immediately lowered his head and said dejectedly, "That was just the beginning. I don't know what he's been busy with these past few days. When I asked him, he said he had something to do. I've been bored in the mansion." He then looked at Yi Mei, "Sister, when are you going to discuss with father about entering the palace? I think father is looking for an excuse to decline. If you enter the palace and gain His Majesty's favor, father will certainly curry favor with me and His Majesty will also value me. My success in my career has also helped you, hasn't it?" Yi Mei sneered in her heart but did not show it on her face. She smiled, "You and I are brother and sister. Naturally I will help you." She muttered to herself for a moment and said, "Speaking of which, your relationship with father is closer than mine and father's. These days, have you seen anything special about your father? Special place?" Yi Ku was puzzled, "Nothing special." Yi Mei saw that he did not understand and changed the method. She smiled and asked, "Not this. For example, father has something precious or some secret. Perhaps you can inquire about it." Chapter 1075. Yiku looked at Yi Mei and paused for a moment. Sister, what do you want to do? Yiku was a person with too much ambition but not enough intelligence. He was a little clever, but he was easily blinded by superficial things. He was also too greedy and could not be decisive. Yi Mei had lectured him many times since he was young, but it was because of Yiku's arrogance and greed that Yi Mei could easily muddle through. She sighed and said, "You also know that the two of us are not of the true Yi clan bloodline after all. I heard that father has been secretly looking for the Yi blood these days. If he can't find it, then so be it. If he does, what will happen to us?" She lied without thinking, but Yiku was stunned and immediately believed her. He stammered, "Really? Father is really looking everywhere for the true Yi family?" Yi Mei nodded. Yiku's expression became a bit twisted, mixed with anger and jealousy. How can father be like this, using us and then kicking us away? Why? That's why I'm not satisfied, Yi Mei said. It's fine for me, but you are different. If the true Yi blood doesn't return, a cripple can't compete with you. The Yi family will be yours in the future. How can I watch as your things are handed over to someone else? Yiku was originally very angry, but now that Yi Mei said this, it went all the way to the 12th. He said, "That's right. That won't do. So I thought of a way. I have to find Yi Maotsai's weakness. Since he is the prime minister, he must have some secrets. If these secrets are known by us, we can naturally use them against him." Yiku heard this and thought deeply. He said dejectedly, "Father didn't open his heart to me. Now that I think about it, there doesn't seem to be any secrets. But..." His eyes brightened as he suddenly remembered something. He hurriedly said, "Once in his study, I saw a painting of a beauty hanging on the wall. I thought it wasn't bad, so I touched it and was sternly stopped by him. At that time, I guessed what was different about the painting." Yi Mei asked, "And then?" "Father told me that there are some things in the painting, but I haven't become an official yet, so it's useless to me. When I become an official, these things will come in handy, and he will give them to me." Yiku spread his hands. "That's the only thing I can think of about the precious thing you mentioned. I saw that what he said didn't seem to be false, so I didn't probe further. Does this count?" A hint of joy flashed in Yi Mei's eyes as she said, "Yes. Then I'll think of a way to steal it." Yiku immediately stood up. "No." Yi Mei hurriedly stopped him. Seeing Yiku's suspicious expression, she said, "Since I was the one who thought of this, in the end, I will be the one to threaten him even though it is for you. However, if you were to threaten him, he would be dissatisfied with you, and it would be hard for him to avoid obeying you on the surface but opposing you on the inside. Why don't I steal it and use it to threaten him? That way, in Yi Maotsai's heart, you won't know anything and you'll still be his man." Hearing this, Yiku felt that Yi Mei's words were very good. He clapped his hands and said, "Sister is so thoughtful." Then he looked at her gratefully. "Sister, you are so good to me. In the future, younger brother will have a meteoric rise. He will definitely not forget elder sister's kindness and will definitely repay you." Yi Mei smiled slightly, and her gaze fell on Yiku. Finally, she said in a very friendly manner, "I'll wait for you to repay me well." After Yiku left, Yi Mei closed the door, and her expression slowly darkened. She had always been thinking that during this time in the Yi family, she hadn't gotten what she wanted. On the contrary, she had always been used by Yi Maokai. Even because she wanted to escape from the Yi family, she had no choice but to give up her body and give herself to someone like Jin Xingming. No matter how she looked at it, this deal wasn't worth it. And Yi Mei never made a deal that wasn't worth it. Now that the Yi family was going to be unlucky, she had to leave and jump out of the Yi family's ship. Otherwise, she would be tied up and sink with the Yi family. But before she sank, she had to take something back from the Yi family to make up for what she had lost. Since Jin Xingming was going to Mingqi, then there would be a day when she would be able to climb up to the nobles of Mingqi and reach the peak of Mingqi's power. With one turn of one's hand, she would be able to summon clouds and rain. That was the life she wanted. And the Yi family was the prime minister of the Great Liang, so the prime minister's residence would more or less hide these secrets, and these secrets were closely related to the Great Liang. There was no country that would shut out other countries' secrets. This secret was Yi Maocai's painstaking effort, and it was also the stepping stone for her to enter the residence of the nobles of Mingqi. This thing could make up for everything she lost in the Yi family. Now thinking about it, what did she lose in the Yi family? Free power, forced commitment, and also a stupid younger brother. Chapter 1076. A few days after Xie Jingxing returned to the residence of Prince Rui, he had to make a trip to Ruyang City. In the beginning, Lu Jingchen chose Ruyang City as the stronghold for the rebellion. The forces in Ruyang City were complicated, and even though there were people from the MOU army sweeping up the remaining forces, it was only military strength. The imperial family did not intend to let go of any of Lu Jingchuan's lackeys that were deeply hidden. It was better to kill 3,000 by mistake than to let one escape, so they were handed over to Xie Jingxing to handle personally. After Xie Jingxing left, all the internal and external affairs of the residence of Prince Rui were handed over to Shen Miao. The residence of Prince Rui had a light attitude in the entire Longyi. Many of the officials were still on the sidelines and were watching every move of the residence of Prince Rui. The more critical it was, the more no mistakes could be made. Shen Miao, like in the past, would talk to those Furens from time to time and imperceptibly pass on some information. The situation was finally under control. This wave of disaster brought by the Lu family was considered over. As the Lu family's rebellion started from Ruyang, the commoners of Longyi were not affected much. At most they followed the public opinion and scolded the Lu family as rebels and traitors. The commoners were stable and the officials did not dare to act on their own. The overall situation was stable and everything looked the same as before, except for one family. The Prime Minister residence, Yi family. Yi Maocai had been in the imperial court for so many years. When Emperor Yongle sat on the throne, he was still a weak youth. Now that this youth had grown into an unfathomable man and his methods were as ruthless as his father, the Yi family did not have a way out. Yi Maocai was not as stupid as Lu Jingchen and was not as arrogant as Lu Jingchen. The power that Emperor Yongle displayed made Yi Maocai understand that the current Yi family did not have the ability to compete with the imperial family of the Great Liang and could only be like a needle, a thorn, piercing into Emperor Yongle's body. It was not painful, but what the Yi family had to pay was the fate of the entire residence. No one wanted to die and no one was willing to walk on a dead end. Yi Maocai had to start planning an escape route for himself. He hoped to be able to protect his only son, but when necessary, all these could be abandoned. But the most important thing was that every move of the Yi family was being watched by the imperial family and it would be extremely difficult to escape. Moreover, no one had expected Emperor Yongle to act so quickly. On this day, when Shen Miao returned from the residence of the imperial censors Furen, it was already late in the evening. The long summer had finally passed, and the first signs of early autumn could be seen. The flowering trees in the courtyard began to shed their leaves. A thin layer of leaves fell and was swept away. A gust of wind blew, scattering a few grains of leaves. Jingzhe was so angry that her head hurt, but after the wind blew over, she would involuntarily sweep the courtyard with the broom. Shen Miao was standing at the side of the courtyard when Uncle Tang happened to walk over. When he saw her, he smiled. "Furen, the kitchen has cooked soup today. When the soup is done, get someone to send a bowl over to Furen. These days, Madam has been going out early and returning late. It must have been hard on you. It's just accompanying someone to chat. It's not hard work. Shen Miao smiled. She then thought of Xie Jingxing, who was still in Ruyang and could not help but sigh. Things were far from over. The calmer Long Yi looked, the deeper the danger he was hiding. Even if the Yi family was taken care of, what about Ming Qi that was thousands of miles away? Now she was worried about two things. On one hand, she had to worry about Ming Qi, and on the other hand, she had to worry about the Great Liang. How long could Emperor Yongl's illness last, and when would Fu Xiu and the Qin country join hands to attack the Great Liang? These were all uncertain matters. If there were any accidents in the imperial family of the Great Liang, only Xie Jingxing could bear the responsibility. At the same time, she would have to face more problems. Chapter 1077. Xie Jingxing's words were right, there was no more time. There wasn't much time left for them to slowly plan how to deal with the other party. Just as he was thinking, he saw Mo Qing rushing in with a strange expression. These days, Shen Miao let Mo Qing monitor the movements of Yi Mei's siblings day and night. Yi Mei had already hooked up with Jin Xingming, and Jin Xingming was about to leave the Great Liang, thus Yi Mei was determined not to let her have her way. In some aspects, Yi Mei was more troublesome than Yi Mao Kai. His Majesty has issued an edict to invite Yi Mao Kai into the palace. Mo Qing said. Shen Miao was startled. Enter the palace. Mo Qing nodded his head. Correct. Currently the Yi residence is in chaos and the servants are scattering in all directions to escape. But there are people from the palace guarding outside, but it is very chaotic inside. Shen Miao muttered, how could it be so fast? It was a known fact that Emperor Yongle wanted to deal with the Yi family, and she was not surprised at all. But now that Xie Jingxing was in Ruyang and Emperor Yongli's health was not good, if Xie Jingxing was around to give the order, perhaps there would be more assurance. But when Shen Miao thought about it again, Emperor Yongli's actions were so fast that even she felt that it was fast. Most likely it was even more sudden for Yi Mao Kai. The Yi clan was also a cunning rabbit with 3 burrows. If the Yi clan was given a chance to breathe, it was inevitable that Yi Mao Kai would find a way to escape in the future. Now, in the name of entering the palace, Yi Mao Kai was placed under house arrest. To catch the thief, first catch the leader. This Yi mansion was like a group of dragons without a leader. First, they would be in chaos. When he wanted to clean them up, it would be a piece of cake. She thought about it and said, You, Songyang, and Tai Yi immediately go to the Yi mansion and keep an eye on Yi Mei and her brother. If they make any movements, follow them first. If they want to leave Long Yi, stop them and bring them back, dead or alive. The 3 of them are keeping an eye on Yi Mei and her brother. Songyang jumped down from the tree and said, This is too much of a waste. I heard that Madame Yi is not a simple person. Why don't I go and take a look at her? Don't worry about her. Shen Miao said, even though she is intelligent, she is after all a woman. These days the news that was inquired was that Yi Mao Kai would not allow Yi Furan to intervene in his political affairs. Yi Furan would not be able to come into contact with Yi Mao Cai's power, so she could only exist as an intelligent woman. The emperor didn't let her enter the palace because he realized that she wouldn't be able to stir up any waves by herself. On the other hand, Yi Mei and her brother are very cunning. They left the Yi mansion so easily. I always feel that it is not that simple. She must have some plan, and this plan is beneficial to her. This is what you need to pay attention to. Songyang thought about it and felt that what she said made sense, so he nodded. Tai Yi would only listen to orders, not to mention Mo Qing. Just as the 3 of them were about to leave, Shen Miao paused and suddenly called out to them, That's right, if you meet the young master of the Yi residence who is unable to walk, do not hurt him. If someone wants to hurt him, remember to help him. In the middle of the night, the Yi residence was in a state of chaos. No one would have thought that the imperial family would suddenly send people to invite Yi Maokai away. Even though the servants did not know what happened, but these days they had heard some rumors. Now that Yi Maokai was invited away, Yi Maocai's resistance confirmed the conjecture in the servants' hearts. In a moment, everyone packed their clothes and jewelry and prepared to escape. Some felt that there was no hope of escaping and secretly cried in the room. There were also some who pretended that nothing had happened and hoped that it was a misunderstanding and continued to do their own things. The entire residence was in a state of panic. These servants were usually disciplined very well by Yi Furen, but when it was a matter of life and death, unless one was a saint, no one would be able to remain calm. Chapter 1078. In this chaos, Madame Yi had already started to pack up her gold, silver, and other valuables. She had long seen Yi Maocai's plan. She originally had a trace of hope for Yi Maokai, but in Yi Maocai's escape plan, she was not included. Husband and wife were birds in the same forest, flying separately in the face of disaster. Madame Yi could be considered to have seen it clearly now. Yi Maokai did not care about the relationship between husband and wife, and she had the right to pretend that she did not have such a husband. The escape route that Yi Maokai had arranged now happened to be convenient for him. There was no choice, who asked Yi Maokai to be the biggest target in Emperor Yongli's eyes. She seriously searched the room for banknotes and jewelry that could be taken away, trying to pick up as light as possible. After all, she could not just sit and wait for death. Yi Mei and Yi Ke were the same at this moment. Yi Ke paced back and forth in the room, his eyebrows full of anxiety. From time to time, he asked Yi Mei, "Sister, do you think this is true? Is the Prime Minister's residence really finished? How is this possible? We did not hear anything before. Perhaps the Emperor invited Father into the palace for some court matters, and it is not what we think." Yi Mei was packing up some banknotes. A few days ago, she had already started to change those jewelry into silver, and then change them into banknotes that could be used by all the banks in the Great Liang. These things were easy to carry, and they were indispensable. She said, "Are you still deceiving yourself and others now? If it was simply to talk about court matters, why did Yi Maokai let the Imperial Guards attempt to escape when he was invited away? It was obvious that he wanted to abscond to avoid punishment. But there was no sign before this." Yi Ke still refused to believe Yi Mei's words. "You just did not pay attention." Yi Ke's eyes widened, and he stared at Yi Mei in disbelief. "What do you mean, sister? Did you already know? Since you already knew, why didn't you tell me?" "I was just casually guessing, relying more on intuition, and there was no evidence." "Even if I told you, would you believe me?" Yi Mei sneered in her heart, but on the surface, she said gently, "Moreover, these things, I will settle them myself. After all, you are my younger brother. Now that the Yi family is in trouble, we cannot be tied to it and sink together. We have to find a chance to escape. I will take you with me." Yi Ke's expression was a little complicated, and he seemed to be very unwilling. "I originally thought that staying in the Yi mansion was the best choice, but I didn't expect that not only did I not get an official position, but now I have to run away like a stray dog. Thinking about it this way, it would have been better if I hadn't followed the Yi family back in Qinzhou. This isn't even as good as before." That might not be the case. Yi Mei collected all the banknotes and divided them into several portions. She then said, "We have to keep our lives first. You don't have to wait here. Why don't you go back to your room first and put away all your valuables? These things will be useful when we escape." Yi Ke moved his lips, but in the end, he didn't say anything. He walked out of Yi Mei's room with his head down, as if he had accepted his fate. It seemed like he had listened to Yi Mei and returned to the room to pack up. Yi Mei saw that after he left, there was no sound outside the room for a long time. Only then did she stand up, a trace of haze flashing through her eyes. After pausing for a moment, she quietly left the room. She walked towards Yi Maocai's study. The door to Yi Maocai's study was closed. Usually, only Yi Ku and Madame Yi went into the study, and Yi Maocai occasionally said something to them. However, Yi Maocai was a cautious person. If he really wanted to hide something, he probably wouldn't do it in a place like the study that could be easily found. However, the more dangerous the place, the safer it was. Yi Maocai could also do the opposite and deliberately put things in the study to surprise people. Chapter 1079. However, Yi Mei had received a hint from Yi Ku before. She knew that Yi Maocai had hung a painting of a beauty in the study. There seemed to be something strange about the painting. There was something important in it that Yi Maocai had mentioned. Now that Yi Maocai had been taken away, there was no hope for Yi Ku to be promoted, so this thing could only be placed here. Because everyone in the Prime Minister's residence was in a state of panic, there was no one outside the study. Yi Mei entered easily and quickly found the painting of a beauty. The painting of a beauty was hung on the wall opposite Yi Maocai's desk. Yi Mei walked over and touched it with both hands. She saw that the painting was very flat and there was nothing wrong with it. How did Yi Ku find it? Yi Mei did not give up and looked carefully again, but still did not find anything. She was a little discouraged and suspected that Yi Maocai had moved the thing in the painting somewhere else. Yi Mei vented her anger on the painting of a beauty. She looked at the painting with dissatisfaction and saw that there was something wrong with the beauty in the painting. The beauty in the painting was standing under a peach tree with a faint smile on her face. Her cheeks seemed to be flushed, and she looked very bashful. That pair of eyes was very cold and did not contain a smile. Moreover, they were bright, giving people an illusion that the painting was lifelike and made people feel a chill on their backs. Yi Mei's heart skipped a beat. She suddenly reached out her hand to touch the eyes of the beauty in the painting. Sure enough, the place where her fingers touched was a hard protrusion. She pressed down hard, only to hear a paw sound. On the wall, the painting of the beauty suddenly caved in. She was excited. She reached inside and took out an iron box. Inside the box should be what Yi Ku said, Yi Maocai's precious thing. After Yi Mei got the thing, she did not stay any longer. She turned around and was about to leave. At this moment, the door of the study was suddenly pushed open with a creak. Yi Mei was stunned and saw Yi Hongguang pushing his wheelchair in. Seeing Yi Mei, Yi Hongguang was also stunned. Big sister. Yi Hongguang was very worried today. All the servants in the residence were in a state of panic. As a young master who was unable to walk, he did not have a high status in the residence. Usually, Yi Maocai would protect him and they would not go overboard with him. However, once Yi Maocai left, Madame Yi would not care about him and the servants would not care about him either. There wasn't even a person to push his wheelchair. Yi Hongguang was also very worried for Yi Maocai, but there was no one in the manor who spoke to him. In his distress, he could only push his wheelchair to Yi Maocai's study. It was as if the study still had Yi Maocai's aura. It made him feel like he was still the young master of the Yi family who had his father's protection. Who knew that as soon as he entered the study, he would see Yi Mei. Big sister, why are you here? Yi Hongguang asked. Yi Mei was still holding the iron box in her hand. When she saw Yi Hongguang come in, she let out a sigh of relief and smiled. Oh, father asked me to come here to find something for him. I'll give it to him when he returns from the palace. I saw that the servants in this mansion were all busy, so I came to look for them myself. What is it? Yi Hongguang's gaze fell on the box in Yi Mei's arms. Is it the box that big sister is holding? Yi Mei smiled and said, yes. She then said, third brother is also here to look for something. Then I won't disturb you anymore. I'll leave this room for third brother. Third brother can slowly look for it. She was about to leave, and just as she was about to step over Yi Hongguang's wheelchair, she heard Yi Hongguang suddenly say, Big sister, don't you know that father never lets women into his study? Yi Mei paused and stopped in her tracks. Chapter 1080. Yi Hongguang's eyes were very clear and innocent, but at this moment, they seemed to be very sharp. He said, Big sister, why are you lying? Why are you lying to me? I'm not lying. Yi Mei composed herself and smiled. I'm telling the truth. If you don't believe me, wait for father to come back and ask him. Then you'll know if I'm telling the truth or not. Yi Hongguang acted as if he didn't hear Yi Mei's words and continued, Is it because of the box in your arms? Is it because you want to steal the item in this box? This box belongs to my father, right? Although I don't know what it is, since you came to steal something in this chaotic time, it must be very important to my father. It must be very precious. Yi Mei was stunned. This seemingly weak, crippled young master had inherited some of Yi Mao's things. Although he didn't understand the ways of the world, he was undoubtedly very smart. Yi Mei slowly clenched her fists. Put this box down and I can pretend that nothing happened. Yi Hongguang said. Third brother, Yi Mei tried to coax him, father told me to take this box. I really didn't steal it. Since you didn't steal it and father told you to take it, there's no need to rush. Wait for father to come back and give it to him personally. Yi Hongguang wasn't willing to give in. Yi Mei saw that the appointed time with Jin Xingming was getting closer and closer. She panicked and said, What if I don't? Why not? Yi Hongguang frowned. Did you really steal it? Yi Mei was a little angry. Yi Hongguang's way of thinking was different from ordinary people. She didn't even know how to threaten or bribe this young man in front of her. She said he was smart, but he was stupid enough to think that she would hand over the item in her hands. She said he was stupid, but he saw the uniqueness of this box and stopped her at such a crucial time. Seeing that Yi Mei didn't move, Yi Hongguang's good temper gradually disappeared. He said seriously, If big sister insists on not giving it to me, I can only call mother over and have her stop you. Madam Yi. Even though Madam Yi was not worth mentioning in the eyes of Emperor Yongle, she was the leader of all the servants in the Prime Minister's residence. All the servants had to listen to her commands. Furthermore, even though Madam Yi acknowledged her as her daughter, she stood on Yi Mao's side. If Madam Yi found out about this, she might not be able to keep the box. No. Yi Mei blurted out. Then put down the box. Yi Mei said, Third brother, listen to me, someone. Yi Hongguang suddenly shouted, scaring Yi Mei so much that she immediately covered his mouth. Yi Hongguang began to struggle, but he couldn't walk, and he was too weak to use any strength. He was completely restrained by Yi Mei. Yi Mei covered his mouth, but her gaze fell on the large scissors in the wastebasket not far from her hand, flashing with silver light. Her eyes flashed and she suddenly had a plan. Without any hesitation, she grabbed the scissors and fiercely stabbed Yi Hongguang in the chest without even furrowing her brows. Yi Hongguang's mouth and nose were pressed by Yi Mei. Yi Mei suddenly stabbed Yi Hongguang with a pair of scissors. He kicked his legs wildly as he glared at Yi Mei. It was as if he hadn't expected such a vicious woman to exist in this world. However, he didn't have the strength to shout anymore and could only make a "ah" sound from his throat. Yi Mei looked at him coldly and said, I didn't want to kill you, but you talk too much. She turned and left. Chapter 1081. Yi Hongguang collapsed on the ground. His wheelchair was overturned, and he was sprawled on the ground. His blood gradually dyed the ground. He tried his best to crawl to the door to call for help, but it was easier said than done. The door was so close, but at this moment, it was like a road with no end in sight. It was so long that it made one despair. Tai Yi and the others had just arrived at the Yi residence, but they didn't see Yi Mei's whereabouts. They thought that Yi Mei had escaped in a short amount of time, but when they checked the study room, they were shocked. Yi Hongguang was lying in a pool of blood, barely breathing. They didn't know if he was dead or alive. Song Yang asked, "What happened? What should we do?" Mo Qing came out from another room and said, "Yi Mei and younger brother intend to escape from the residence. Tai Yi eldest brother's Qinggong is good, you will follow." Tai Yi acknowledged and leaped out of the window, disappearing into the night. When Mo Qing's gaze landed on Yi Hongguang's body, he jumped in fright and said, "What happened?" "I don't know." Song Yang scratched his head and squatted beside Yi Hongguang to check his breath. "He's still breathing, but I don't know if he can be saved. It seems that they have been schemed by others." Mo Qing said, "Quickly move out and lure people over. Come on." Song Yang clapped his hands. The servants in this manor are all busy with their own matters. How would they have the time to care about this young master? Haven't you heard of the saying, a phoenix with its feathers down is no better than a chicken? Moreover, the madam of this mansion doesn't really like him. Seeing him like this, she can't wait to clap her hands in delight. How could she call for a doctor for him? Then bring him back. Mo Qing walked to Yi Hongguang's side and carried him up. Yi Hongguang's body was weak and it was effortless to carry him up. Mo Qing said, "Furen sees this boy in a different light, and if we do not save him, it would not be good." Thinking that if Furen was present, she would also make the same choice. Bring him back to young Master Gao first. Whether he can be saved or not depends on his fate. Song Yang shrugged. "I'll listen to you." The young man suddenly opened his eyes and squeezed out a few words with great effort. "Steal things. Run." What does he mean by that? Song Yang was puzzled. However, Yi Hongguang's head tilted to the side, and he didn't wake up no matter how hard he tried. "I don't understand. Let's go quickly and wait for the servants to come," Mo Qing said. The two of them did not dare to delay any longer. They did not stay here for long and quickly left. Shen Miao was sitting in the room waiting for news. Emperor Yongli's actions came so quickly that many things had to be brought forward. Planning was one matter and seeing if the plan would succeed was another matter. However, Tai Yi and the others had been gone for so long, causing her heart to sink. She wondered if Yi Mei had already escaped. Just as she was thinking, she heard Jing Zhi saying happily, "They are back, they are back. They are back." Shen Miao stood up and heard Gu Yu's surprised voice coming from outside the door. "What is going on?" Quickly called Dr. Gao over. This was Mo Qing's voice. Following that, the door was pushed open and Mo Qing and Song Yang both walked in. Mo Qing was carrying someone and when they entered the room, he placed that person on the couch. Shen Miao took a look and was stunned as she cried out involuntarily, "Yi Hongguang." When this subordinate went over, he was found lying in the study and seemed to have been assassinated. The assassin should be someone from the residence. Yi Mei's siblings were planning to escape and Tai Yi was already following behind them. He left a signal along the way and this subordinate would immediately rush over. One had already ordered someone to invite Gentleman Gao. Mo Qing explained. Who in the Yi residence would have such a deep hatred with a child? Shen Miao saw Yi Hongguang's face that was 90% similar to Fu Ming's, and her heart was very sad and somewhat angry, to even lay such a vicious hand on a child. Perhaps it was done by Yi Mei. Song Yang said. Shen Miao frowned. What is the meaning of this? This child woke up once and said a few words. Mei stole something and ran away. Mo Qing said. This subordinate guessed that she perhaps wanted to say that Yi Mei stole something and ran away. Perhaps Yi Hongguang bumped into her when she was stealing and thus silenced her. But what exactly was stolen? Song Yang said. Gold, silver and jewelry. To lay hands on a child for these things. TSK. This female is really ruthless. Not right. Shen Miao suddenly said. Both of them were surprised for a moment and asked at the same time, what is not right? Not right. This matter is not right. A thought suddenly flashed in Shen Miao's mind and without any time to consider, she immediately said, Song Yang, immediately follow the signal that Tai Yi left behind. If you see Li Mei leaving Long Yi, no matter if it is by land or water, do not stop her. But you must delay their time and make them slow down a little. Do not stop them. Song Yang was startled. Yes, do not stop them. Shen Miao said. She looked again at Yi Hongguang who was lying on the couch and switched Jing Zhe and Gu Yu over so that Gao Yang would immediately cooperate with her. Finally, she said to Mo Qing, follow me to the study. Even though everyone was baffled, seeing her dignified expression, they did not dare to refute and followed her. Shen Miao's eyes were as cold as a knife. Mei Furin stole something and ran away. Steal what? Where to run to? Shen Miao more or less understood her plans, so she specially came to send her off. Chapter 1082. Yi Mei and Yi Ku jumped onto Jin Xingming's carriage. Jin Xingming had some ability to even bribe the servants of the Prime Minister's residence. Even so, Yi Mei and Yi Ku's movements were still discovered by the people in the palace who were guarding outside. The carriage ran in front, and the soldiers chased relentlessly from behind. Yi Ku looked out the window of the carriage and saw that in the darkness of the night, the sound of hurried hooves coming from behind was particularly clear, making his heart tighten. He looked at Yi Mei with some fear and said, Sister, what do we do? If they catch up, we're finished. He then urged the coachman, can we go faster? The coachman ruthlessly whipped the horse again, and the speed of the horse became slightly faster. Yi Ku's heart settled down a little. He suddenly thought of something and said, Sister, when did you prepare this? If you hadn't prepared the carriage beforehand, I'm afraid we wouldn't have gone far before we were caught. I naturally had to plan these things early. Yi Mei wouldn't tell Yi Ku that the carriage was obtained by Jin Xingming, and she definitely wouldn't tell Yi Ku that they were going to escape with Jin Xingming today. Or rather, in Yi Mei's original plan, Yi Ku wasn't included. Seeing that the carriage was about to turn a corner on a street, Yi Mei looked outside and said, this won't do. With the two of us in a carriage, it'll be easier for them to catch up. If they go all out, they might catch up. It's better to split up and meet up at Babeo Street in a while. Split up. Yi Ku was at his most nervous. When he heard that he had to split up with Yi Mei, he immediately panicked. He said, let's go together. We can look after each other on the road. If we go together, it'll be easy for the soldiers behind us to catch up. Don't worry, you sit in the carriage. I'll go down first, and the coachman will take you to a hidden place to enter Babeo Street. When the time comes, we'll meet there. Everything has been arranged for us to leave the city, so there won't be any problems. Hearing that he didn't have to get off the carriage, Yi Ku relaxed and didn't stop Yi Mei. Yi Mei let the coachman stop by the side of the street. She grabbed her bamboo hat and hid her face before disappearing into the night. The coachman continued to pull Yiku forward. Yiku's figure could no longer be seen on the street. Yi Mei looked at the carriage that had disappeared, and her lips slowly curled up under her veil. She followed the other end to a small house and knocked on the door. Not long after, someone came to open the door, and Yi Mei quickly dodged in. In the darkness, the man asked, "Is everything settled?" Yi Mei nodded. On the other side, Yiku was sitting in the carriage. After Yi Mei got off, the coachman's speed became faster and faster. Gradually, the sounds of the soldiers catching up gradually weakened. Yiku's heart was slightly comforted. When he could no longer hear the sounds of the soldiers, he felt a little uncomfortable from the bumpy ride and said, "We can slow down a little." The coachman turned a deaf ear to him and continued to drive the carriage quickly. Yiku was a little dissatisfied. He lifted the curtain of the carriage and looked outside. He was surprised. How was this still a city? This was clearly a mountain. It was precisely because the mountain road was rugged that it was more difficult to jolt. Yiku jumped in fright. Only then did he remember that even Babao Street was not this far away. Why did the carriage driver drive the carriage here? He said, "Don't walk any further. Go back to Babao Street." The coachman ignored him and continued forward. Yiku was furious, but he was afraid of shouting for the soldiers. Just as he was about to speak, the carriage gradually stopped. Yiku was stunned, and then understood that the coachman was planning to stop the carriage. This coachman really didn't listen to orders. Yiku planned to go outside Babao Street and teach this person a lesson. Just at this moment, the carriage stopped. There was a rustling sound from the front, and the coachman got off the carriage. Chapter 1083. Yiku opened the curtain and looked out of the carriage at him before scolding, "Why did you come down for? Still not bringing me to Babao Street?" The coachman glanced at him, and only then did Yiku see clearly that the coachman was more muscular than an ordinary person. Even if a normal coachman needed to practice, he would not be as tall and muscular as this person. There was a faint feeling of uneasiness in his heart and he could not help but not dare to shout. Even though he was also a young male, he was not as tall as this person and his body was not as strong as this person. One feared that he would be at a disadvantage if they fought. That carriage driver went around to the back of the horse and took out something from his bosom. After looking at it for a long time, he suddenly stabbed it into the horse's buttocks. The horse was startled and suddenly raised its hooves and suddenly rushed forward. Yiku did not expect that the carriage driver would suddenly do such a move. The horse suddenly ran forward and he was thrown to the back of the carriage and was in a daze. His heart was filled with fear and Yiku suddenly realized something and suddenly opened the curtain of the carriage in front to look forward. The last thing that Yiku saw was a bottomless abyss and densely overlapped tree branches. The bottomless abyss seemed to be so deep that even if the carriage was smashed down, one could not hear the sound of it landing on the ground. The night covered for a while and only the wreckage of the carriage could be seen at the edge of the cliff. After a while, there was the sound of shoes stepping on the dead leaves and after a while, there were two pieces of clothing at the side of the carriage. No one heard Yiku's last cry of older sister. Shen Miao was in the study writing with great speed. She wrote very quickly and her hands seemed to be moving instinctively. Ever since she locked herself in the study, her hands had not stopped. Mo Qing quietly stood behind her. Even though he did not know what she was doing, he did not make a sound as he watched her write quickly. It seemed that there were not only words but also some maps. After she finished writing, she let Mo Qing use the remaining warmth of the lantern to quickly dry the paper so that the words did not need to be wet. She would sometimes frown and sometimes ponder, making her look very dignified. Just at this moment, someone knocked on the door from outside. Mo Qing let the person in and it was Tsong Yang who was panting. Song Yang said. Subordinate and Tai Yi followed Yi Mei and her brother. At the corner of the city, they parted ways. Tai Yi followed Yi Mei, subordinate followed Yiku. Yiku's coachman drove the carriage deep into the mountains and lured Yiku to the cliff. He set up a trap and the carriage fell off the cliff. Yiku had no way out. Broken cliff. Mo Qing was surprised and somewhat puzzled. Who is that carriage driver? What grudge do you have with Yiku? Song Yang rubbed his nose. I was in a hurry to come back and report, so I didn't pay attention to what happened to the coachman. Since Yiku is dead, this subordinate has returned. There is no need to investigate. The carriage driver is Yi Mei's people. Shen Miao said. Yi Mei. Song Yang was startled. Yi Mei had the driver kill Yiku. But Yiku is her brother, and since she wanted to kill him, why did she bring him along when she escaped? When escaping, naturally a target is needed. Yiku is Yi Mei's blood-related younger brother, so it was most suitable to be a target. I think that the coachman not only killed Yiku, he also placed Yi Mei's and Yiku's clothes at the cliff, so that people would think that both siblings fell off the cliff and died. When Mo Qing and Song Yang heard it, they were surprised for a moment before coming to a sudden realization. Yi Mei should have found an escape route from the beginning, but she was afraid that she would be chased like a stray dog, and there would be a day when she would be caught up. It would be better to let the world think that she was already dead. No matter how idle the soldiers were, they would not go and kill a dead person. Yiku was her younger brother, and according to normal people's hearts, they would definitely think that she would be with her younger brother when she escaped. At the cliff, they would see her younger brother and Yi Mei's clothes. Those soldiers were personally following her younger brother, so they would definitely think that Yi Mei was also in the carriage. Naturally, they would think that both siblings had mistakenly fallen off the cliff and died. Chapter 1084. Yi Mei made Yiku her scapegoat and also helped her solve the later troubles. That is her biological younger brother. Song Yang sighed. If it was a male then so be it, but as a female, she can be so vicious and merciless. One fear that in her heart, Yiku had long been an abandoned chess piece. Shen Miao said without much care, so to use Yiku till the end when he is alive, it is also her ability. This was Mei Furen's ability and in her life, it was only the icing on the cake. For example, in the past life, Yiku's existence allowed her to have more power in the inner palace, thus she had a deep sibling relationship with Yiku. At this point, Yiku could not bring her any benefits, and would even drag Yi Mei down, so Yi Mei did not hesitate to kill him. A flutter sound was heard from the window and a snow-white pigeon flew in and landed on Song Yang's shoulder. Song Yang took out the note from the pigeon's leg and quickly unfolded it. After reading it, he said anxiously, Tai Yi said that Yi Mei and the previous Jin Xingming had already reached the pier and seemed to be going by water. Looking at the strong winds outside, it seemed like it was going to rain and said, if it were to rain tonight, it would be difficult to catch up after they go out to sea. Now this subordinate and Song Yang will go over and bring them back to Furen. No. After finishing this sentence, Shen Miao had just finished writing on the last piece of paper. She burned that piece of paper on the lantern and kept it in an envelope. Then she said to Song Yang and Mo Qing, Song Yang, you are from the MOU army. Find a few agile people from the MOU army to bring this letter and follow behind Yi Mei all the way to Mingqi. Mingqi. Song Yang frowned. Why would they go to Mingqi? Mo Qing had heard that Jin Xingming has a friend whose business is doing well in Mingqi and recently there were frequent visits. It was obvious that he had the idea of going to Mingqi. Moreover, only by going to Mingqi, Yi Mei would be able to completely escape and not be discovered by the officers. She said, all of you also follow along. Pay attention to Yi Mei's personal belongings, like a box or something hidden. Be careful not to be discovered by others. Once that secret thing is discovered, change the thing inside and change it with the thing in this letter. She handed the letter to Mo Qing. Mo Qing received the letter. Although he was somewhat puzzled, he still agreed. Be quick, don't let anyone find out, Shen Miao urged. But just let them go to Ming Qi like this. Song Yang said, did Furen not see them as enemies all along? It is true that we are enemies, but this is not letting them go, Shen Miao coldly said. On the contrary, this is sending them to the Yellow Springs. Go quickly. If it's possible, it's best if you can exchange the items before they board the ship. It would be troublesome to change after boarding the ship. No matter when they are replaced, leave 2 people behind to continue following them. Keep in touch with them at all times. If there are any other orders, I will let them know. When Mo Qing and Song Yang saw that Shen Miao was speaking in a serious manner, they did not dare to lower their guard and quickly left with the letter. Shen Miao held the table with one hand and tightly pursed her lips, but there was a flash of killing intent in her eyes. She really hoped that Mei Furen would die, and before that, she only wanted to take Mei Furen's life as soon as possible, so that there would be no more dreams. But now, she didn't think so. Heroes were vying for supremacy under the heavens, and everyone wanted a piece of the Emperor's soup. The Great Liang wanted it, the Qin country wanted it, and the Ming Qi also wanted it. Fu Xiuyi would definitely think of ways to join forces with the Qin country, and at that time if Xie Jingxing were to go into battle, it would definitely be a tough bone to chew. With the enemy in front of one's eyes, one would have to erase them, but before that, it would be better to make the best use of everything. Dogs biting each other, would it not be good? Chapter 1085. No one understood Yi Mei's schemes and selfishness better than Shen Miao. A person who could even abandon her own younger brother, how would she make a losing deal? Yi Mei wanted to get something from the Yi family to compensate her. Gold and silver jewels were far from enough, what she wanted was eternal power. Yi Mao Kai had been in the Great Liang for so many years, and other than the Yi residence's reputation and wealth, the most important thing was the dirty secrets of the Great Liang court. Perhaps it was the imperial families or the courtiers. With secrets, there would be weaknesses. These secrets were most likely Yi Maocai's hands to use against the other officials, or perhaps it was the evidence that he had carefully collected. But one thing was certain, these things were very important to the Great Liang court. If one were to say it was more important, it could even cause the destruction of an imperial court. And this was exactly what Yi Mei needed. Yi Mei could use this as a stepping stone to the high-ranking officials and nobles of Ming Qi, but Shen Miao's design was more luxurious, a stepping stone to the imperial family. If Fu Xiuyi was able to obtain these, he would definitely be very happy, and Yi Mei, this kind of enchanting beauty, would definitely grab this opportunity and, like in the previous lifetime, nibbling away at Fu Xiuyi's heart step by step. But what if these things were all fake? Military defense map, secrets between the courtiers, discord between the imperial family, weaknesses that could be breached. All these things looked as if they were the key to Ming Qi's victory over the Great Liang. But what if all these things were fake? Ming Qi would fall into a wrong judgment, deploy troops in the wrong place, and use the wrong methods to sow discord. At the end, success or failure would be achieved and the great cause would be destroyed. This was the logic of a 1,000-li dike being destroyed by an ant's nest. Of course, Yi Mei did not know that she was holding the wrong things. Of course, Fu Xiuyi could also doubt the authenticity of the things that Yi Mei took out. But it did not matter. Shen Miao believed in Mei Furen's ability. She was a very powerful woman, so at the end, Fu Xiuyi would definitely believe Yi Mei's words. Therefore, in the end, the outcome of this battle was also predetermined. It was not that Shen Miao did not want to kill Yi Mei, nor did she deliberately release Yi Mei like a tiger back to the mountain. But she wanted to see the woman that Fu Xiaoyi loved the most in his previous life walk towards him step by step like in his previous life, throw herself into his embrace, and finally personally send a big gift to send Fu Xiaoyi to a dead end. He felt even more relieved. The most important thing was that this matter was beneficial to Xie Jingxing. Because of this small chess move, the world had undergone earth-shattering changes. It was really too good. That night, it was as what Song Yang thought. After midnight, there was finally a violent storm, and it was only until the morning of the second day that Song Yang and the other two returned and were all drenched. Yi Mei and Jin Xingming had already boarded the boat to the Great Liang, and it was as Shen Miao had guessed. Yi Mei had a silver box that was tightly hidden that even Jin Xingming did not know about it, but she herself had not opened it before. The people from the MOU army exchanged the things in the box with the things in Shen Miao's letter, and Tai Yi took out a stack of things from his bosom and handed it to Shen Miao. Shen Miao flipped through it, and it was not different from what she had expected. It was indeed something that Yi Mao Kai had collected over the years to threaten and balance the other courtiers. There were even some secrets of the royal family. She thought about it and decided to let Xie Jingxing deal with these things after he returned. The people of the MOU army had already followed Yi Mei to the Great Liang and were paying close attention to Yi Mei's movements, but there was nothing for the time being. Chapter 1086. Shen Miao then thought of Yi Hongguang and let Mo Qing and the rest while she went to the room next door to see Yi Hongguang. Gao Yang was still around and said to Shen Miao that Yi Hongguang's life was saved, but he had yet to wake up. No one knew how he would look like after he woke up and whether it would repeat in the future. After all, his injuries were too serious. If it was not for Mo Qing and Song Yang who brought him over from the Yi residence in time, one did not know if he would be able to keep his life. Finally, Gao Yang glanced at Yi Hongguang on the bed and asked, "What do you plan to do now? His Majesty clearly wants to deal with the Yi family, yet you brought the Yi family's young master to your own residence. Could it be that you want to raise him in the future? What plans does the Emperor have for the Yi family?" Shen Miao asked. "What other plans could I have?" Gao Yang smiled. "Cutting the grass and not leaving the roots." He then said, "Don't tell me you sympathize with me." "Of course not. Your Majesty did the right thing. The Yi family and the Lu family were dealt with cleanly. Only then would the court be more stable. But..." She glanced at Yi Hongguang. "This child has nothing to do with what Yi Mao Kai has done. If he's in the wrong, it's just because his surname is Yi and he was born in the Prime Minister's residence. Let's just wait and see. We still don't know if he can survive and what he will look like when he wakes up. If possible, I would like to ask the Empress for a favor." "You're really strange." Gao Yang was puzzled. "Why are you so benevolent towards this young master of the Yi family? Initially in Mingqi, one did not see you having such a good heart. What's so special about this young Master Yi that you treat him differently?" "Because of his face." Shen Miao smiled. "Face?" Gao Yang looked at Yi Hongguang's face for a long time but couldn't see anything special about it. He waved his fan and said, "I don't understand." "Never mind if one do not understand." Shen Miao said, "After all, it is not a serious matter now." She lowered her voice. "Xie Jingxing is going to go on an expedition to Mingqi." Gao Yang suddenly turned back and looked at Shen Miao, as if he wanted to say something, but in the end he did not say anything and just looked at her without speaking. "I knew this day would come, but I didn't expect it to come so soon." Although he said that he would be in Ruyang during this period of time, the matters in Ruyang were almost done. Even if they wanted to deal with the remaining forces, they might not necessarily need him. On the other hand, Long Yi is at the forefront of the situation, but he isn't there to hold the fort. Shen Miao sighed. "Moreover, dealing with the Yi family is too sudden. Your Majesty. Is it not good? Actually, I should lie to deceive you, but I don't think I can deceive you. I am afraid I will make you unhappy. Gao Yang said, if I make you unhappy, Miss Luo will be angry with me. You're right, the Emperor is in a bad state. The Prince should have already told you about the Imperial Edict. Now His Majesty is instructing his own confidants to send some people to follow Prince to Mingqi. He paused before continuing, or perhaps it should not be going to Mingqi. The spies in the Ding capital had already sent back news that Fu Xiuyi had already reached an alliance with the Qin Emperor and took the initiative to attack the Great Liang. If the Great Liang was conquered, the two of them would divide it 50-50. He has a big appetite and is not afraid of choking. Shen Miao sneered. Fu Xiuyi, this person, most likely had an appetite after gaining power and influence. Before that, he was respectful to the Great Liang people and had a gentle attitude. Now that he allied with the Qin country, he dared to have such ambitions. He is also not considered arrogant. Gao Yang smiled. If one looked at it seriously, one would discover that the smile was somewhat dignified. He said, previously the Lu family and the imperial family were fighting. Even though the Lu family was eradicated cleanly, outsiders saw that the imperial family did not expend much effort and even had more than enough energy, but in fact there were many losses. Moreover, the Lu family could be considered as a powerful military force of the Great Liang. Now at this critical juncture, the Great Liang's military force is not much different from the Qin Ming. One need to meet force with force. But the most important thing is that Fu Xiuyi knows of the Emperor's illness, so he can destroy our morale at any time. I believe in the Prince of First Rank in this battle, but it will definitely not be simple. Gao Yang said. I have never thought that this battle would be simple. Shen Miao was disappointed and frustrated. It is very difficult to fight a war. That is why the Prince of First Rank will lead the troops, but now that Ming Qi's side had already made their move, there are frequent incidents at the borders. Currently it is only a small skirmish, and not long later, they will officially declare war. The Prince of First Rank does not have much time, so recently he has been preparing. He did not want to tell you, possibly fearing that you will be distracted. Shen Miao was silent for a moment before saying, I understand. So, will you follow him to Mingqi? Gao Yang asked. Shen Miao tilted her head and laughed, can I? Why not? Shen Miao looked to the front and lightly said, one do not know when the Emperor's illness will flare up, and one do not know when this battle will end. At that time, if the Emperor really met with an accident, he would definitely announce the succession of the throne to the world. The Empress cannot leave her own country as she is responsible for the people under the heavens. I am not that great, but do not want him to carry the name of an incapable ruler. In terms of reputation, he is already aggrieved enough. So, I will guard the Great Liang's territory for him first. Chapter 1087. 2 days after Yi Mei and her brother escaped, Emperor Yonglu used the Yi family's collusion with Lu Jingchen to participate in the rebellion and massacred the entire Yi family. It was easier to deal with the Yi family than the Lu family. The Lu family was the Yi family's reliance, and once the Lu family fell, a Yi family would not be able to stir up any waves. Even though Yi Maokai had many connections and followers when he was alive, but under Emperor Yongli's iron fist, everyone could see it clearly and grew fearful, not daring to be as unbridled as before. Yi Maokai was personally convicted by Emperor Yonglu and was beheaded at the Meridian Gate. Speaking of which, Yi Maokai was not wronged. Shen Miao took out the things that she exchanged from Yi Mei and picked out the things related to the imperial family to give to Empress Yende. In order to restrain the imperial family, Yi Maokai secretly did a lot of things. These things became important evidence to convict the Yi family. Beheading at the Meridian Gate, this time the imperial family's prestige was very big. And the MOU army that followed Yi Mei and Jin Xingming also sent back news from time to time that their escape was very smooth. Most of the people believed that the newly recognized siblings of the Yi family died at the cliff. The reason was that they did not see the road clearly when they were escaping at night and fell down the cliff in a panic, dying without a complete corpse. Even though the Great Liang's officers and soldiers continued to search, they did not find any traces of the two of them. Outsiders all said that no one from the Yi family survived, but there was only one person, and that was Yi Hongguang. Shen Miao let Mo Qing handle it, but Yi Hongguang had not woken up until now. Gao Yang said that whether he could wake up depended on Yi Hongguang himself, and he might sleep for the rest of his life. As for Xie Jingxing, he returned on a rainy night. A burst of autumn rain and a burst of cold. Shen Miao was reading a book under the lamp and the raindrops made a small sound on the window as the weather gradually turned cold. The tea on the table quickly turned cold. The door was pushed open with a creak and some of the cold wind and rain came in. Shen Miao turned her head back and saw Xie Jingxing closing the door and walking in. His clothes were somewhat wet from the rain and after taking off his outer clothes, he saw Shen Miao staring at him in a daze. His lips could not help but curl up as he walked over to her side and pinched her face. Not good. My Furen has become silly. Shen Miao pushed his hand away. Why did you only return now? You did not even send a message. Xie Jingxing had left for a few days and did not even send a message. Even if Shen Miao had a good temper, she was also somewhat annoyed. At the very least, he had to report that he was safe. No one in the mansion knew of his whereabouts. It was really troublesome. It was a smile that was not a smile. If one knew that Furen would not return, one would not know of Furen. He held Shen Miao's shoulders and said with a smile that was not a smile, if one knew that Furen missed me so much, I should have returned earlier. If Shen Furen, he said with Xie Jingxing thought about it and put on a righteous look. How about this? In order to compensate Furen, I will let you do whatever you want today and will not struggle. Shen could not help but laughed. May you are sick. Xie Jingxing saw her smile before saying, coax it well. But I heard one thing when I came back. He looked at Shen Miao. You let Yi Mei escape. I didn't let her go. Shen Miao said, she wanted to go to Ming Qi and even stole the secrets of the Great Liang that Yi Mao Kai had gathered. One think that she wanted to rely on this to seek refuge with the nobles of Ming Qi. I replaced her things and also gave her some military defense maps and the like. I think it will be more useful. Maybe with this, she can even become an empress. Xie Jingxing was slightly surprised for a moment before he understood her meaning and blinked his eyes. Furen's move is very vicious. Chapter 1088. Yi Mei happily took these precious things to look for the nobles in Ming Qi. As long as the nobles were not stupid, they would use their connections to present this thing to Fu Xiu-yi in exchange for the world's meritorious services. But who would know that this military defense map was drawn by Shen Miao? If Fu Xiu-yi were to fight against it, one feared that one would not even know how one died. Shen Miao raised her brows. I am a poisonous woman with a heart of snakes and scorpions. So what? Very good. Xie Jingxing leisurely said, I like poisonous women. Those were the things that I gave to Yi Mei. Afterwards I made another copy that is exactly the same. Shen Miao said, later I will pass it to you. Ming Qi and the Great Liang will eventually go to war. At that time, with this thing, you will be able to know what Ming Qi's plans are and it would be better to get twice the results with half the effort. She thought about it and added, it is best to give Fu Xiu-yi some sweetness in the beginning and let him think that those things are real. After testing the truth and falsehood, he would definitely increase the manpower that was arranged. At that time it would be more cost-effective to beat him at his own game. Xie Jingxing smiled, "You are quite good at calculating. When are you leaving?" Shen Miao asked. After a moment of silence, Xie Jingxing then said, "You know about it. You think that you can hide it for a long time." Shen Miao sighed. Seeing that Xie Jingxing did not speak, she smiled instead and said, "Yes." She poured a cup of tea and handed it to Xie Jingxing, with tea replacing wine. "I wish you success." Xie Jingxing was startled for a moment before he took the tea and looked at Shen Miao. "If you win, remember to give me a wish when you return," she said. "What wish do you want?" Xie Jingxing raised his brows and there was a deep smile in his eyes. Shen Miao thought about it. "Oh, at first. I have not thought about it yet. Wait till I have thought about it before telling you." Canned Xie Jingxing snapped his fingers. "I also have a wish and you must satisfy it now." "What?" He carried Shen Miao on his shoulders and walked to the back. "Accompany me to take a bath." Shen Miao, the flowers in Wei Yong Palace had withered a lot. The flowers that were dense in the spring and lush in the summer would wither in the autumn, looking especially gloomy. However, the palace maids found some chrysanthemums. Big purple, white, and yellow flowers were already showing signs of blooming. It seemed like they could melt away the loneliness a little. However, autumn was already harsh. How could it be changed by a few pots of flowers? The autumn rain drifted in, and some of it drifted into the house. Tao Gugu closed the window and fiddled with the small stove a few times before quietly retreating. Emperor Yongle reclined on the couch. He was actually very handsome, but his face was usually cold and expressionless, so his handsomeness was overlooked by others. What the people saw was the cold indifference of the emperor and his deep schemes. Without the identity of Emperor Yongle, no one knew what kind of person Xie Qi was. Perhaps, there were two exceptions. One was Prince Rui, Xie Yuan, and Empress Xianda was also one of them. The former Empress Dowager Jingxian could also be counted as one, but she had already passed away, so it was useless to talk about her now. Empress Xianda was brewing flower tea. There were flower petals and the first snow that was buried under the tree last year. A spoonful of honey was placed in it and a small fire was slowly lit. A sweet fragrance was emitted from the small pot. It was accompanied by a stack of osmanthus flower cakes that were just taken out of the imperial kitchen. It was warm and sweet, making one's heart sweet. Empress Xianda picked a cup of tea and handed it to Emperor Yongle. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.